Yep, and it is indeed the 2-hour race for the Tequila Club Enduro Championship that is coming up next. Pit stops, driver changes, a great variety of different cars, as you can see forming up on the grid on screen now. It's going to be a tremendous 2 hours. Let's walk you through the grid. Pole position then, it is the car of Joe Locke and Ash Hicklin, the BMW E46 M3 GTR. It's being started by Joe Locke, it's on pole position. Carl Swift starts the Seat Leon Euro Cup, next to them car number 1. Montague and Hall, well, it's going to be the 50 car that started by Peter Montague on the inside of row 2, and next to him going solo, Alan Henderson, number 90 in the Lotus Elise S2. Car 87 is on the inside of the third row of the grid, and that is the Beeson and Heller car. Stocko and McDonald on row 6. Heller starting the 87 car, and Andy Stocko, the number 14 car. Row 4, Steve Cheetham, 43, and the Caswell and Kayla 126 car. Caswell starting that. Taylor and Ashmore in the Holden Commodore on the inside of row 5. It's Matty Taylor starting that, and then it's the David Mercer and Mark Mercer car, number 41. Mansfield and Boston are on the 6th row of the grid, number 19, ahead of the Wallace brothers. Matthew starting that. William Stacey going solo in the number 49 Lotus Elise. Colin Gillespie is next up in car 15. That's the BMW M4. The Griffin and Butcher, number 34 car, is next on the grid. That's the E36 M3, and then the Jones and Rogers Seat. Row number 9 is the Freeman and Monday number 4 Honda Civic Type R, and alongside them the number 27 VW Golf R being started by Mark Grice. It's 117 and 95 on row number 10 of the grid. That's the Jones BMW and Andy Bailey in the Honda Civic. Phil Dryborough and the Browse are on row number 11, and row 12 is Luke Handley and the Bosch and Parkin Seat. Cars 74 and 29 on the 13th row of the grid. That's the McEwen and Andrew Roby. Manoj Patel and the Maudsley car on row number 14. Row 15, May and Skeets with Darren Ball alongside, a bit further back than he would have been expected in the Porsche Cayman. Matthew Tidmarsh and Edward Christie are on row 16. Row 17, Jonathan Barrett and Michael Dark. Row 18, John Atherton, and then the Rogers and Griffiths car. Chris Coomer in the Clio, and Howarth and Boardman next up as the safety car pulling away. Just to fill you in on the last few rows of the grid. Where did we get to? Oh yeah, Chris Coomer we've got right at the back, hadn't we? And then Schultz and Howarth right at the back. Yes, that's all of them in fact. Start drivers, it's Joe Locke starting the pole position car number 86. Carl Swift starting car number 1. Montague starting car number 50 in third place, as my screen decides to look at something else. Get it back up in front of me now. And then it's Alan Henderson going solo. Heller starting car 87. Stocko starting 14. Caswell 126. Taylor number 7, Mark Mercer number 41, Matthew Wallace number 6. The 34 car is being started by David Griffin. The 48 car by Mark Jones. The 4 car now being driven by Chris Freeman solo by the looks of it. Mark Grice starting 27, 117 being started by Ian Jones. Bit further back, in fact the 22 car, the Browse BMW E46 M3 is withdrawn. Scott Parkin is starting the number 3 car, and so on and so forth. We'll fill you in on other start drivers as we need to as the race goes on. But looking forward to what should be a very good 2 hours of racing, Josh.
Yes, it's interesting to see how Club Enduro's changed since the end of last year. We've got a massive influx of top class cars. Class A, 21 of the 46 cars that qualified are all in the top class, and Class C, the slowest cars, is just got the 9, so a bit of a change from previous years where the bulk of the entries are coming from. And the new car on pole position, the E46 M3 GTR of Joe Locke, the car that's been developed over the winter by Tim Gray Motorsport. A lot of time and effort's gone into that, and they've got it on pole. Joe Locke and Ash Hicklin, the two sports prototype drivers in the past, converted over. Snetterton last year didn't go very well for them. They only lasted a few laps, so they're hoping to go better this time. And then alongside them is Cole Swift, the reigning champion in the Seat Leon, with his teammate and team boss Rob Baker. That car has won every club enduro race bar one that has competed in, so that is going to be difficult to beat, you would think. But new pit stop rule to this year, Ian, could mix up things a little bit.
Yeah, so we didn't have a mandatory pit stop window before. We do now. It's between 30 minutes and 1 hour 45 minutes, and in that time you have to make a mandatory 3.5 minute pit stop, normally 3 minutes, extra 30 seconds added on during the current period due to the sanitisation required of the inside of the car. So I think the champions from last year, Rob Baker and Carl Swift, who won 3 times last year, I think they will have their work cut out this season defending their title. It certainly looks like they will have a race on their hands today as the cars come through out of the final corner. The lights go out and the race gets underway for 2 hours around the Donington Park Grand Prix circuit, and it is then Joe Locke and Carl Swift that are going wheel to wheel into the first corner. But look at that, the cars 45, 46, 47 of them possibly even making their way out of Goddard's, and the top 2 already getting away from Alan Henderson in the Lotus. Looks like he's in 3rd position at the moment, Josh.
Yeah, it was a slightly odd start by Peter Montague. He wasn't really with the top 2, which wasn't really part of the plan. But Cole Swift's taken the lead. He's got himself ahead of Joe Locke at the start of this race. There was one car that come into the pit at the end of the green flag lap, which was one of the M2s, I think. That actually didn't qualify very well, Michael Dark. So he's got back, and Peter Montague, who isn't as quick as his teammate, has got a whole heap of cars behind him as they turn their way through the Claims. It was Stuart Hall that qualified that car, former world WEC champion, and Peter Montague not quite as quick as Stuart, and therefore he's got a whole group of cars trying to pass him on this first lap, and that has allowed the top 3 to be way ahead of the rest.
Yeah, a great gaggle of cars though heading down towards the Fogarty S's, including, that's the second of the Seat Leon cars you've got there, which is the Wallaces, I think, making their way through into the Fogarty S's. There's the 3, well, there are the 3 leaders, I should say. They're way ahead of the rest. Then it looks like, well, you've got Steve Cheetham there in his very distinctive Porsche. That was uprated to Class A specification after he won the championship in it in Class B spec the previous year. He's there in 5th position at the moment, just behind the second of the Seats. Up towards the left-hander they go. Great sight and sound these cars make. You've got one of the older shaped BMWs in there, which is great to see. As down the start to finish rate they come, and it is the second of the Seats that was at the head of that group, which hasn't triggered our timing screens yet, unfortunately, so we've not got the full rundown of the positions at the moment, but certainly the 4th and 5th place cars now pulling clear, Josh.
Indeed, I think that's the 87 car, George Haler's Seat there in 4th position, new to Club Enduro this year. The whole group of cars will make their way down the Craner curves, but Joe Locke going with Cole Swift at the moment for the lead. Here's 14, which is one of the BMWs, Andy Stokey's M2, ahead of the William Caswell Seat. Then I think it's the Wallaces up next in a new livery for this year. Then another of the M3s, that's Mark Mercer, a single-seater racer in Historics. Mark Mercer back out with his dad, former Group C racer David in that M3. So they make their way down 3 abreast here. That's William Caswell going around the outside of the M2 and slots in front of it as they make their way out of there. So that's a 6th position, I think. Here's the battle for 4th. Steve Cheetham going after George Haler. Then it's the group for 6th. And you've got Wallace there trying to come around the outside of the BMW, but there wasn't room for that as the leaders crossed the line at the end of 2 laps. And it's a 1 minute 41.8 for our leader, which is Cole Swift, which is a lap record already, 1.5 seconds under Marcus Clutton's lap record in Club Enduro. So real pace on that car. That's
Colin Gillespie.
Yeah, he's driving a different car in this race. This is Andy Marston's M4, if you remember that from a couple of years ago, after his car broke yesterday, and
this one seems to have broken as well. Yeah, it's right on the exit of Coppice Court on the curb there, but it is now moving, so that's very good news. So
he'd just done a full reset there, Ian. You could see the lights flashing on and off as he turned everything off and turned it back on again. There was yellows there going down the Craner curve. Not sure what for though.
No, we'll try and pick up to see if there is anything that we can see there that might have caused those yellow flags. So it's Carl Swift leading, Joe Locke in 2nd place, Alan Henderson 3rd, let's just say the healer Leon in 4th, Steve Cheatham 5th. 2-hour race. If only had 5 minutes, but yes, new pit stop rules, and there's a new change here in that the cars have got a safety car now as well. So the safety car board is out. Not seeing the safety car itself just yet, but
in fact, no, it's out of the window.
Well, the board looked like it's being put away. So
yeah, there's nothing out on the start line, so that's...
now a green flag's being waved. So some confusion there, I think. Anyway, race continues.
It's Cole Swift that leads it by 1.7 seconds from Joe Locke now. Alan Henderson going with them too, and it's Henderson who's the one driver that had beaten Baker and Swift last year, going solo in that Lotus. And there's a big gap to the rest, which is George Haler, newcomer to the series, ahead of Steve Cheatham. They're both being caught though by William Caswell, who's there in 6th place. And then the rest of them come through, being led by Andy Stokey, then Mark Mercer, Matt Wallace, and David Griffin completes the top 10. The Holden in 11th, the biggest engined car, which is started by Matty Taylor. Then Peter Montague's dropped to 12th, the car that started on row 2.
It'd be interesting to see how that fares in the second part of the race, won't it, with Stuart Hall aboard. As the car's negotiating the old hairpin, then after that brief confusion with the yellow flags and the safety car boards out. See going through there the 49 car of William Stacey. I was just about to say, we do this season have different coloured sun strips as well. We should have different coloured sun strips as well for the cars, but I don't know if that's actually manifested itself. And in any case, it's different colours to our class icons on the timing tower, so it'll probably just confuse you to know about that at the moment. But on our timing tower, Class A cars are blue, the Class B cars are red, and the Class C cars are the green icons on the screen.
Class B is being led by Mark Grice in the Volkswagen Golf. Second is William Stacey, you can see on your screens there in the Lotus Elise. And third is Christopher Freeman. Stacey about to be passed on circuit by Andy Schulz, who started from the back of the grid and is now working his way into the top 15. So it's been a good start from Schulz there in the M3, and the Gillespie M4 is not getting terribly much further, is it?
I would suggest there's some kind of ECU or electrical issue with that. It's stopped a couple of times.
Class C, let's give them a shout. It's Alex Lively that leads that by 3.4 seconds from Jonathan Packer, who's not going as well with the dry as he went in the wet 4 months ago, where he dominated that class. Then in third position, he's Paul Sabiani in a BMW, so it's 2 Civics out front in Class C.
You mentioned 31st, as you can see on the revolving timing screen, or timing tower there on the left-hand side of the circuit. So 1.9 seconds between the first 2 cars at the moment, another 1.3 between second and third. Then they are 11 seconds clear of the next car in 4th position.
Colin Gillespie stayed out.
I was surprised by that.
Yes. But it is going at the moment. Let's hope it continues to do so.
Well, it's one of these things. If it's an intermittent problem, then the temptation is to keep pushing on. But I think if it does that one more time, it would be well advised to get back to the pits if you can. See if there's a button can press some software that can be updated to make that work a bit better.
Good to see the Nissan out there, the 370Z, which has been started by David May, a former Compact Cup racer. So that's having its first outing in Club Enduro. First time I think we've seen a Nissan. That's 9th within Class B and 26th overall. Meanwhile, a new fastest lap from Alan Henderson, 1 minute 41.624, so he's catching the top 2.
Yeah, he is, and he was 0.2 of a second faster than Joe Locke on that lap, and a little bit quicker as well than Carl Swift. Carl Swift and Rob Baker have shared this car together for a couple of seasons now. But there's the Nissan, yes, it's being shared by David May from Northampton and Mark Skeets from Southampton, which is quite the combination. And they're being chased there by the little Lotus as well, which is John Atherton, who was 7th reserve actually, so he's done well to get into the race here at Donington Park this weekend. These are the class positions. It's Locke and Hicklin that are leading Class A. Class B being led by William Stacey, someone going slowly. Class C by Crook and Livesley, as you were saying. Who's that? Is that Schultz that's going slowly? I think it is, isn't it?
It is, and further down the road, Mark Jones was going slowly too. They were 14th and 15th as they crossed the line. Whether they're related, I'm not sure. There you see Mark Jones. This car finished 2nd here at Donington a couple, 4 months ago, the end of last year, in the wet, but that car in dramas.
It looks like there's some damage there on the front left. Or is that? I think that's just some of the aero on that car that you could see.
They were 4.6 seconds behind Andy Schultz. There shouldn't have been a coming together,
No,
but most of those cars are going slowly now. Going back to the reserves you were talking about, I was told earlier at one point there were 24 reserves for this race, and then some of the reserves pulled out, but actually if they stayed in they would have got a race.
Yes, because we're not quite at capacity as it turns out, so a couple more could have got in.
We are getting the safety car this time, Ian.
I'm not too surprised by that, because it looked like the Schultz car was pretty much stopped at Hollywood, wasn't it? So if that's still there, then this will certainly be needed. And in previous seasons, this would have queued a queue of cars for the pit lane, but it won't do on this occasion, just because of the new pit stop rules.
Let's hope everybody's read the pit stop, the new rules, because there's quite a lot of movement in front of our commentary position.
Of course everyone's read the rules, Josh. Of course they have.
Well, it's highlighted as well, isn't it, in the regs, so it's not like it's been hidden. So what this will do is bring 4th and everybody else back to the top 3 who had got quite a big gap to this point. And what this does help is anybody who had a slower starting driver when they get into the second half of the race. They're the marshals working hard. Big thanks to everybody that's come out and marshalled for us this weekend. Looks like there's a good number of you on what is a pretty chilly day, I should imagine, to be trackside, and a busy weekend for the Donington Park Marshals, because they had the Masters meeting here on Friday and Saturday, and then the 750 Motor Club today. So a real busy weekend to start off the 2021 season.
Yeah, a belated start to the season, but nevertheless a good one. Some mouth-watering historic machinery over the previous few days, and now into some fantastic club and endurance racing. And we've got Club Enduro out on circuit now. Safety car is out now though, and neutralising the race.
What this will hurt, Ian, is anybody in the slower classes that had been lapped by the overall leader, that then basically go about 3/4 of a lap behind their class rivals, if anybody had been lapped to this point, which is quite possible. Yeah,
so safety car's picked up the leading car, which is always good. Carl Swift out there.
You can see a couple of the Mazdas had been lapped, hadn't they? So
yes.
they're going to fall a long way behind their rivals. And that's just sort of how it goes, isn't it? It's a complicated process to sort that out, and one that isn't really possible in club racing terms. Right, car in the pit lane is Mark Jones, so he made it back.
And that will be for a required stop rather than a mandatory stop, because that was a car that was limping around, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So you can't make your mandatory stop yet. You can, of course, come into the pits if you need to do some work on the car, and that's opportunities available to you throughout the race. But the pit stop window is from 30 minutes, and you can't make your stop in the last 15 minutes of the race either.
The car from 8th position pitted, Andy Stokey's BMW M2. Not sure where that's right underneath me. Not much is happening. Driver still in car. And there's not very much work at the moment going on it, so not sure what the problem there for car 14 is.
It's the M235i, Andy Stocko and David McDonald sharing that car this weekend. We did have a couple of cars withdraw after qualifying. The Browse number 22 E46 M3, I believe, as well as the Mansfield and Boston Lotus Elise S2 number 19. I don't think either of those made the start, having had problems in qualifying.
Yeah, the Browse, that's another of them GTR M3s, look really good in the paddock, but obviously hasn't lasted too long, unfortunately. And Rob Boston, and now he's not driving, he's back to being team manager for Will Stacey, who's running second within Class B. Now I wonder if we're just going to get one safety car lap, although the lights are still going, aren't they? So perhaps that's not going to be possible.
Yeah, we'll see if there's a late call to bring the safety car in. Here's the class positions once again. Although, yeah, it's actually Swift, isn't it, ahead in Class A at the moment. Class B, again, I think it's actually the Beach and Mark Rice. It's actually Mark Rice that's starting the car, that he's leading Class B, so I'm not quite sure that's 100% right at the moment, the class positions. But we'll go back to the overall positions. I'm comfortable that that's correct, in that it is Carl Swift leading the race. Right, is the safety car staying out, is the question?
Yes.
It is, so we get another lap behind the safety car. And as you say, if you do have your slower driver in at the moment, and then you were going to make an early stop anyway, then this sort of neutralises a part of the race when they were going to be slower than everybody else. Looks like the Jones and Rogers car's going to be pushing into garage by the looks of it, Josh.
It does, doesn't it? So that was the car that had all the problems at the Birkin last year as well. It went really well here in the rain in December, and it seems to be having problems again to start off the season. No idea what's going on with the M2 underneath me, because Andy Stokey stayed in the car, but nothing's happening to it. So I have no explanation for that. I imagine we'll hear from Matt Suckling during the course of this race from the pit lane with the news. We can see on the screens there Andy Schulz's car continuing to be pulled off. Once that's done, we can get this race back under green flag conditions.
Yeah, certainly can. In the meantime, a very nice parade of cars around this Donington Park Grand Prix circuit, although no one to show them off to today. No spectators here, of course, at Donington Park as yet. Hopefully they'll be back soon.
Well,
for
that big thanks to everybody who's joined us on the stream, who can enjoy that the parade. Big thanks to Alpha Live for providing some excellent pictures, and thanks to everybody who's joined in today. By far our, I think, biggest audience for the 750 Motor Club live streaming, which will continue at the end of the month at Silverstone.
It will indeed, and lots of different categories there. And aside from the BMW 116 Trophy, which is a 90-minute race, and the Road Sports race, which is 45 minutes, lots of short, sharp sprint racing as well. Good to see lots of comments on the live stream as well, with the people contributing their views on YouTube and asking questions. And it's good to have all of the comments there. People ask about the new pit stop rules. As I say, there's a pit stop window now this season. You have to make your mandatory stop, between 30 minutes and 1 hour 45. That's the car 14. That's the Andy Stocko car that has now got out again, Josh.
That felt horribly like 3.5 minutes sitting still doing nothing to me.
Which is completely unnecessary at this stage, because you can't make a mandatory stop.
Yes. So whether that's one team that haven't looked at the regulations, because to me they look like nothing happened. They were looking at a stopwatch, it seemed, throughout.
Right.
And it felt very much like 3.5 minutes as well.
Oh, that would be a shame. Anyway, safety car lights are still on, and usually you'd expect them to be out by now if the safety car is going to pull in. So let's keep an eye on what happens here. Do we get another lap under the safety car, or do we go racing again? No, we're going to get another lap, aren't we? So clearly the officials aren't happy that the incident has been cleared yet. That might be why. So who's that?
Is that the car that pitted early, the other M2? the Michael Dark car, I think.
Yes, 235. I was trying to work out what number that was. I could see the bottom part of it, but yeah. That's the Elite Works car.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's coming. It's trying to come in, by the looks of it.
It's just out of the Melbourne loop.
Yeah.
So that might necessitate some more clear. We'll be getting close to the pit window opening at this rate.
We will. And the marshals opting to push it downhill rather than up. I don't blame them. And there's obviously plenty of runoff there at the bottom of the Melbourne loop, where often the cars assemble before the races. People able to watch the stream down beneath us in the pit garages, seeing what's going on almost live. I can see the 14 Andy Stocco car. Did they do a driver change on that? Did you notice they did a driver change on that?
It did look like it. Looked like second driver was just standing there.
Okay.
While nothing was going on.
Okay. Well, anyway, that's back out in the race, and he's trying to catch up with the pack, isn't it? It's just gone past my window. So there is Carl Swift in the lead. Joe Lock second, Alan Henderson third. A couple of the Mazdas, Golf, that's a bit further back. There's the 235 car being pushed through the gap in the fence. Down near the 750 Motor Club office, actually. It's not too far away there. Not the gent you can see, but it's just off camera to the left. The old 750 Motor Club office was in one of those hospitality buildings, you can see there. But for a few years has been based on the other side of the road by the main entrance here at Donington Park. Safety car lights look to be off now, which is a relief. And we're going to get a few minutes of racing before the pit lane window opens, it would seem. But it's been a bit of a strangely muted start to this race, hasn't it, Josh?
Yes, sort of had a few BMWs stopping, haven't we? We had, I suppose the big thing that happened at the start was Peter Montague dropped back, and we saw a bit of shuffling around him. The top three seem to be very equally paced. The Seat, the M3 GTR, and the Lotus Elise. So three very different cars. And this just shows how well the 750 Motor Club regulations work with the power to weight ratio. Means you can have the small, light Lotus, the rear-wheel drive cars against the front-wheel drive cars as well. And it works really well. And just, on the best laps, those three cars are separated by 1/10 of a second. So we should have a great battle as we go back to green flag racing at Donington Park.
Yeah. Up and over the line they come then, green flag wave, safety car is already in. Steve Cheetham getting support from Joseph and Amber, I can see. He's in fourth place in the number 43 Porsche, you can see in the middle of shot there, heading towards us. But obviously the top three cars just able to blast their way away from those back marks, including the 316 Mazda MX-5 of Ivan Mares. And now they're past the start line, the quicker cars can overtake some of those back markers again effectively, but the top three, Swift, Lock and Henderson, able to pull out a few seconds over the rest.
Absolutely. And in the classes you've got Mark Grice, Will Stacey, Andy Bailey, Chris Freeman in Class B all absolutely together, so that's going to be one to pick up as well. But coming through the traffic you've got William Caswell, who's having his first outing I think with the 750 Motor Club, being chased by Mark Mercer, who's raced former Atlantic historic cars in recent years. You've got the Bathurst liveried M3 E36 of Dave Griffin, the Diet Coke car, chasing the bigger E46, the newer car that's just up ahead of it. And they will slot past Ivan Mares and have a few more laps without traffic to deal with. Once that has been done, you've also got Matt Wallace in there, haven't you, in the Seat. He's fallen behind Dave Griffin on this restart, so Griffin goes P8 past Matt Wallace over this lap.
Down towards the Melbourne hairpin goes the field, and It's a fantastic array of cars we do see here, including, you just saw in shot there, the number 7, the Holden Commodore of Matty Taylor and Will Ashmore, and good to have them both out in its new sort of semi-camouflage livery for this season. There it is.
Three leaders are absolutely together going down the Craner curves. We'll have to pick that up in a moment. Joe Locke's just set another new lap record, 1 minute 41.615. He was challenging Cole Swift down towards Redgate. There's more battles going on the screens though, coming down towards Redgate as Mark Grice goes round the outside of Peter Montague to grab what is 11th position there. So that was a good move. A whole host of cars involved in that, but I was being distracted out the window by the top 3 really tight together, but it's hard to know when there's a 40-plus car grid where to look, isn't it, Ian?
It really is, and yes, they were covered by 1.1 seconds, the 3 of them at the end of the first flying lap after the restart. We'll try and pick one how they're going at the moment. There you can see very briefly the number 3, the Class B car of Scott Parkin and Nicholas Bosch, the Seat Leon TDI. Very smart indeed. There's Ivan Mayers.
Lots of new cars out this year, isn't it? You mentioned the TDI Seat. That's the first time that's been out in Club Enduro, so it's attracting lots of new people to the series.
Yeah, it is good to see a variety of different types of car coming in as well. It's only, 6 years ago that the first foundations of Club Enduro were laid with what was basically just a long road sports race and a spin. That's for Peter Montague and the car in the gravel. Now, is he going to be able to get it out of that? That will be the question. Spin at the Fogarty S's, and it's not too deeply in, but as he was trying to pull away, it looked like the wheels were perhaps digging in a little bit. We'll see if he does get going.
Joe Locke was challenging.
Will take over. Sorry, Josh.
Yeah, Joe Locke was challenging Cole Swift into Redgate again. I think that M3 GTR is a bit more powerful, and therefore into Redgate. Both the last 2 laps they've been side by side for the lead of the race, but where the Montague car is could be problematic, and possibly Stuart Hall won't get to race today.
No, probably not, as things stand.
I know he's hot-footing it off to Europe after this because he's racing at Monza, I think, in the next couple of weeks in an Audi R8, and then he's racing at Monaco next month in a couple of McLaren Grand Prix cars.
Okay, so busy and exotic calendar for Stuart. So we're watching Steve Cheetham, number 43, and right behind him he's got that 126 car. As we are going to get the safety car out again by the looks of our timing screen, but which will take us into the pit lane window. But yeah, it's going to spoil this battle that was going on between Cheetham and the Caswell car, and then the Mercer BMW as well. So that's a great shame. But yeah, already yellow flags waving, and surely it's because it's still there. It's dug itself a little deeper into the gravel than when we've last seen it. Montague out of the vehicle. As in the pits there, we see the number 12 car, and that's the Tom Rogers and John Griffiths Golf, and that was the car that was started by, I'll tell you who in a moment.
Tom Rogers, I think.
Yeah.
But what this is going to do is bring us into our pit stop window, isn't it? Which might mean we will have a lot of cars into the pits on the next lap, I suspect. Anybody that fuel window is within 90 minutes, I imagine, will be in.
I would certainly expect to see Carl Swift in then, do you think?
Yeah, they normally just need a splash of fuel. The car I'm not sure about is actually even the chasing. I think Henderson did a long stint at Snetterton. So the one I'm not sure about, CM3 GTR. Oh, I think most of the field will be in, to be honest, Ian, which is going to be busy.
It will be. Hopefully Matt Sugden will keep out of the way, but he'll get a view of what's going on down there, if he is down there indeed. Hopefully he'll perhaps be able to bring us 1 or 2 stories as the race goes on, as well as the drama unfolds. But yeah, into a second safety car again in quick succession.
I wonder if 90 minutes is going to come after the first few cars have been past the pit lane.
Might do, mightn't it? Yeah, because we've got just under 92 minutes left to go, and a lap under the safety car. I didn't notice what it was taking previously, but about halfway round the lap, aren't they? They probably will, I think, get round before the 90 minutes clicks around, I think.
But what about those further down the queue? Which could be work better for their strategies, depending how long the clear-up takes down at the S's.
Okay, it doesn't look like it's going to be one that takes very long, I don't think. In fact, we should get a view of that any moment now, shouldn't we? Because the cars are about to pass the scene of Peter Montague's off. So if our camera pans to the right, we'll be able to see the status of that. And the answer is that the car's still there, and no doubt that the marshal is just waiting for this train of cars to go by. They'll get the snatch vehicle across the road when there's a gap in the traffic, I should think, to recover it.
We're going to be very close to this 90 minutes to go, well, aren't we, when the cars get round to the pit lane.
There's the snatch vehicle.
Yeah, so that's not far away, but it's going to take a few minutes. The heavy car, the M4, that's the car that we saw win here a couple of years ago in the hands of Luke Sedgwickowski and David Whitmore. David Whitmore racing in British GT again this year, I think. I think he's in a Mercedes this year. Right, so safety car comes out of the hairpin. And what time have we got? It's just about 10 seconds too early, isn't it, for the leaders to pit in?
You're right. It was a very close run thing, though. Now, is the pit window board now out? And it should be any second now.
Mark Grice was hanging back, so he pits about 2 seconds into the window. If you look at the top of your screen, look at the Class B cars, or a couple of them at least, flew their way in. Mark Grice, who'll hand over to William Beach, and Christopher Freeman, who's going solo. Just the two of them then to start with. There's a third car coming in now, which is a BMW, I think, 29. And the Clio, Chris Coomer's Clio, which went well here last winter, is in too. So just 4 cars made this first stop, but that was a good bit of thinking there from the area motorsport team, I suspect, to tell Mark Grice just to back off a bit into the hairpin so he could make it into the pits.
Yeah, absolutely right. Got straight in there, and it was close. It was only 10 seconds or so, wasn't it? That the first group of cars missed out by, but they couldn't really slow any further because they have to keep up with the safety car. They're required to keep within a certain distance. And a search should be... Go on, sorry, Josh.
The BMW that come in, I think, was Andy Roby, who I didn't notice on the entry list. So good to see him out in Club Enduro, I think, for the first time.
Yes, he was relatively a late addition, I think. So the Beach and Grice car, which was started by Mark Grice, is in the pits now, but that was leading Class B. It was just ahead of the Taylor and Ashmore car, actually, I think, in the end. Right, the car's now been pushed out. Marshall Power alone looks... Was that sufficient in the end? Did it need the snatch vehicle?
Did it have a toe out of shot?
That's what I'm wondering, because that could be a problem if it did. I think it might have... I'm not sure, actually. Looking at the way that was positioned, I'm not quite sure whether it did or not.
Yeah. The car, I was going to say, can it get back into the race? Perhaps not.
Anyway,
not sure.
I would imagine it will at least make its way back to the pit lane. So, 3 minutes into this race, 3 minutes into this pit stop window, I should say. 33 minutes into the race. It's number 1 leading the way. That's Carl Swift from number 86. Joe Lock in second place. Number 90, Alan Henderson is third. In fourth place, number 87. That's George Healer. Fifth, number 43, Steve Cheetham. Sixth is the 126 car, which is William Caswell. Seventh, number 41, which was the car started by Mark Mercer. Eighth, number 34, David Griffin. Ninth, number 6, Matt Wallace. And moving up into the top 10 now, I think it will be, will be the Taylor and Ashmore car, won't it? That's started by Matty Taylor in 10th place. So all of those Class A cars as well. Wonder if we'll get more driving to the pits this time.
I suspect there'll be a lot if the safety car doesn't come in this lap.
Because if it doesn't, you probably want to gamble on another safety car at some point, wouldn't you?
Safety car is staying out, so I expect everybody will be in. No, right, this is it. Oh, Cole Swift popped in really late. Okay, that was as
And
late
Alan
as
Henderson.
you could dare. Yeah,
And
so
Steve Cheetham.
Obviously, Locke's car doesn't have enough fuel. It's not as many cars as I was expecting. So obviously, these are cars that don't have big enough tanks that aren't pitting. Bailey's in. So is Stacey. So all the top class B cars have now pitted. Luke Handley in too, the outgoing champion in that class. 199. That's a Porsche I haven't noticed yet. That's Patrick Scharfberger in that, a Boxster. Also in his Darren Ball. He's been well off the pace, hasn't he? Front runner in Club Enduro, Darren Ball. Where was he running? 25th. And 8 seconds off the pace. I wonder what's happened to him this weekend.
Yeah, it's strange, isn't it? Because he was right up there during last season. Apart from Silverstone, when he had dramas, didn't he, with a fire, I think, at Silverstone. But
yeah, he finished
otherwise.
He finished third here in December and finished 5th in the Class A Championship. But it's not like, well, it's not a stopping problem for the car, but it's obviously an issue where it's not quick. Simple as that.
There's the action in the pit lane. And it's that should be Rob Baker then climbing in to take over from Carl Swift for the second part of the race.
Peter Montague has made it back to the pit lane, by the way.
Okay, we'll keep an eye on that to see if that car reappears in the second part of the race.
Darren Ball's card rather on the smoky side on the rear end, so whether that's a problem. I think safety car will be in this lap.
Yeah, lights are out, aren't they?
In Class B, there should be a good advantage, I would suggest, to those two cars that pitted on that first run around, Mark Grice and Christopher Freeman, because they would have done all their pit stop under safety car, where perhaps those who pitted last time, right at the end of their pit stop, will be under a few seconds of green flag running, I would imagine.
That's 51, that's Luke Handley's car that's in the pit lane as well. Class B front runner, he was third in the championship overall and won Class B last season. Getting back in the car for the remaining hour and 23 minutes or so of this race, but the safety car pulls in and the race therefore is going to get back underway with we've had about what, 7 minutes, didn't we, of a safety car there. A bit longer than that actually, but 7 minutes since the pit lane window opened behind the safety car, and the race getting back underway. There's the Dave Griffin car, number 34, and sharing that with Wesley Butcher this weekend in the Tequila Club Enduro Championship. So streaming down through the Craner curves and towards the old hairpin once again. It's now going to be a question of how these pit stops pan out. Again, it's a 3.5 minute mandatory stop.
Is that an issue?
I was wondering that myself.
Because this is more than 3.5 minutes. No, it's not quite, is it? The other cars are all still here. Alan Henderson's leaving now. So Alan Henderson is going to pass the Baker Swift car, so it must be a problem down there for the champions from last year.
Oh, they go now.
Henderson's in front, isn't he?
It was side by side down the pit lane exit, pretty much between those two. So very close. Maybe it's just a bit of a difference on the timing between the two teams. Because of course it's 3.5 minutes stationary. Anyway, Josh.
Here's the leaders. Joe Locke out front, ahead of George Haler in the Seat. A similar car of William Caswell is third. Then Mark Mercer fourth, Dave Griffin fifth, and Matt Wallace sixth. So it's certainly not as many cars pitted there as we were expecting, or certainly what I was expecting. Maybe you had a different idea what was going to happen here, but certainly didn't play out as I expected.
No, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, maybe if it had gone on with the luck, we'd have seen quite a few more cars in there, but there will be some that are gambling for another stop very closer to the middle of the race, I would suspect. Usually it is this sort of sensible thing to try and make you stop underneath the safety car if you can, but not always possible. So watching a couple of the Civics.
When did Steve Cheetham pit?
He pitted at the same time as the Swift car, didn't he? He went in at the same time as Swift and Henderson.
Why has he done a short pit stop?
I can't explain that.
Because he's come through in 25th, a long way ahead of the others. So perhaps they decided not to do their mandatory stop there.
Yeah, it could be that that wasn't ever intended to be their mandatory stop, I suppose, for Steve Cheetham. But you're right, he has come through quite a long way clear. So we'll keep an eye on that one as well as it pays out. There are penalties if you make a short stop during the course of the race or stop outside of the pit window.
Alan Henderson's come straight back in the pit lane, Ian, in the Lotus. So I presume there wasn't contact with the Seat when they went out the pit lane.
Well, it looked mighty close. The camera shot just a cut away as they were getting pretty close together, but it wouldn't be impossible. There was a little bit of a contact between those two as they raced to get out of the pit lane.
I think they're going to the engine bay, which it wouldn't be the first time we've seen that Lotus with mechanical issues, unfortunately.
No. If you don't make your mandatory pit stop of 3 minutes and 30 seconds duration, the penalty will be added at the end of the race. 1 minute plus the balance of the pit stop duration not taken is the penalty that is served there. So if you stop for 3 minutes, say, rather than 3.5 minutes, you'd have a 90-second penalty added to your time at the end of the race.
Well, Steve Cheetham could have a lap on the field, which makes that...
Yes, that penalty then doesn't work in those circumstances, does it?
Yeah,
Let's cross that bridge when we get to
conversation with you
it.
before, haven't I?
Let's cross that
Let's hope he
bridge.
makes another pit stop. By the way, Joe Locke's done another fastest lap of the race, 1 minute 41.25, which is 2 seconds under Marcus Cluston's lap record, which was done in a Porsche Cayman, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So, and we can go down to Matt Suckling, who is with Cole Swift.
Okay, get ready? Yeah. Okay, down here in the pit lane with the man who was in the race lead at the time. Cole, you just came in there with the Seat and handed over to Rob. How were things in the first part of that race?
Yeah, they were good. It was good in phase one. We managed to pull a gap on everyone, and then all of a sudden the BMW came alive, and he was just monstering me through the fast stuff. So I was in defend mode for that last sort of 5 hot laps, and then we've had 2 safety cars since. So the pit window opened, and we thought we'd take it, even though we didn't get a full safety car pit stop. But there's no other safety car. We've won, haven't we? Henderson came in with us and managed to jump us in the pits somehow, even though we were bang on 3.5 minutes. But luckily, he's back in the pits now. Looks like with a bit of a problem. So we've got the overall lead when everything pans out, hopefully.
It's a bit of a different strategy, because normally we see Rob in towards the latter half of the race, but with the safety car you had no choice really.
Yeah, well, me and Rob always say we'll run whatever we have to. If there's a safety car after 5 minutes last year, we can't do that this year, but if there's a safety car after 5 minutes, we'd take it, and one gets more than the other, but it's the only way you're going to win a championship.
And in Club Enduro you normally do really well. I think you've won most of the races you've taken part in, so it should be a good race for you here at Donington.
Yeah, the Cupra got, Henderson managed to take us as unlimited victories off us last year, but hopefully we can start on the back right foot this year.
A good first part of the race for you. You can now sit back and relax and hopefully enjoy the race, Cole.
Yeah, I'd much rather be out there, but it is relaxing being back in the pits.
Lovely, good stuff, well done.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Matt, down there in the pit lane with Carl Swift after that early pit stop. And you'll notice now that the icon colours on the timing tab have changed colour, and that does now match the sunstrips that they're running this year. So Class A cars run a green sunstrip, and they've now got that sort of pale green colour. Class B cars run a red sunstrip, and they've got a red icon, and the Class C cars run the blue sunstrip, and they've got the blue icon. So you'll be able to correlate the colours of the sunstrip with the class of the car. So that's a blue sunstrip on that Civic, which means that it's in Class B, and there's a red sunstrip there for the BMW number 29, which is the Andrew Roby car. That doesn't work. Oh no, it's the blue, it's the underneath, isn't it? I see, right, okay. It's the underneath, yeah, Class A, that's all correct. Right, sorted.
20 laps, there's an issue for the Toyota Celica of the Mundies. We have a new car to Club Enduro for this year. So that's in the pit lane, Class C car. The 20 laps done, and it is Joe Locke that leads now by 4 seconds. But now staying with him better than in that first part of the race is the Hayler Sayat. That's lapping, half a second or so on the last lap slower than the leader. Then William Caswell is third, Mark Mercer is fourth, Dave Griffin fifth, and sixth is Matt Wallace. Class B, that's being led by Phil Driver, who British GT racer, he's out with a Porsche Boxster this season. And then Class C, that's being led by Alex Livesey in a Honda Civic. And on the screen we see 481, which is the BMW of Edward Christie, E36 M3. Now here's a couple of cars that pitted earlier within Class B. They are Mark Grice and Chris Kuma, which are pretty high up on the pit stop rankings. They're certainly ahead of Cole Swift, and who's now of course Rob Baker. So these are very high up on the pit stop rankings, which could be interesting come on later when everybody's flowed through their pit stops in. Yeah,
they're 29th and 30th overall, but of those that have pitted, they're about 5th and 6th, I think, something like that. So far, 75 minutes of the race left to go here at Donington Park. Joe Locke still leading, not lapping as quick as he was a few minutes ago, in the 144s now, but still pretty much the quickest car out there. Car doing its personal best lap last time through actually was the number 21 car in 7th position, and that is the Adam Howarth and Chris Boardman car. And just looking to see who it was that started that.
They started right at the back.
They did, didn't they?
Of the grid. So
yeah, it was Howarth that started that. Yeah, so that's a good performance from them to get up to 7th place. Obviously not stopped yet.
Yeah, 47th to 7th.
Yeah.
So in the 43s, which actually is the quickest car on that last lap, isn't it? And catching Matt Wallace at quite a rate. Here's Alex Miller, who's sharing with John Langridge, front running MX5 racer, so he'll be quick in that, I'm sure. So again, good to see a new pairing out in Club Enduro for this season.
Yeah, Langridge raced Fiestas, of course, as well, didn't he, in the past?
Okay.
In the, probably about getting on for 10 years ago now, I suspect that was. There's Dan Ball into the pit lane, where we said that it wasn't looking like his day today, and sure enough, looks like his race is over, Josh.
It does, back in the garage for the Porsche Cayman. The Routek run car. So a shame for him. Race leaders crossed the line with a much larger gap because a slow lap by George Hayler, possibly due to traffic, means the gap goes out to 8 seconds, and therefore William Caswell and Mark Mercer get closer to him. And there they are, the Seat and the BMW there, 3rd and 4th absolutely together. But there's the P2 car, George Hayler, who shares with Jonathan Beeson in that Seat Cupra. And in the traffic, there's the back of a third. So 126, that's William Caswell. And he's being closely followed by Mark Mercer. So that's a good battle. Just a couple of seconds behind the Seat that's on your screen, going into McLean's.
72 minutes left to go in this race, and it's bubbling up to be quite an interesting one, I think. We've got that great unknown variable of safety cars. We've already had 2 in the first 40 odd minutes of this race. Wouldn't surprise me if we saw another. Sometimes we have a glut of them, sometimes we get away without any at all. Let's see which way it goes today. That's the 51 car of Luke Handley, we can see, just tasting after number 41, which is the Mark Mercer car that's in 4th position. Luke Handley, of course, a couple of laps down.
Yeah, and I think because he pitted that lap later compared to his Class B rivals, I think it's Chris Freeman that's the real pit stop leader. And he's probably about a lap behind him. So that was a big difference, those cars that got in the pits a lap earlier to do their mandatory stop. But we'll see how that all flows out come to the end of the race. This is the battle for third, though, on the road. That's easier to tell. And it's William Caswell ahead of Mark Mercer. There's Mercer, 41, racing with his dad, David. We see them out now and again in Club Enduro. I think it's a new car to them, this E46 M3, with the M Power livery on it. Down into the old hairpin. They're now 4.5 seconds away from the car in front.
Yeah, because his father David will take the car over for the second part of the race. He's been racing since 1975, originally racing a Motorsports Frog Eye Sprite. Shared the car with Jonathan Palmer, no less.
Luke Handley and Andy Bailey, you saw through your shot there, is for position. He's for 35th and 36th. And should be two championship contenders within Class B this year. Mercer's looking down the inside. Is he into the chicane, into the S's? Not quite close enough in the end. But Mark Mercer's having a good run here.
Just some news from Matt Suckling down in the pits was that the number 90 car, the Alan Henderson car, that was a misfire. The car came in for second time around. They checked all the plugs, it seemed fine, so he's gone back out again. So it was a misfire on the Alan Henderson car.
That's a shame, isn't it? Because
yep.
He was going. You can see him on the stream now. He was going really well, and it seemed all fine before the pit stops. But he's now down to 37th, and 3 laps down, I think, on Cole Swift. So that doesn't really look great for them. And Steve Cheetham, so he made that short stop, and he's going again at a decent pace, I think.
Yeah, he's 19th on the timing screens at the moment, having made that stop of questionable duration. And he's got Henderson, as you say, right behind him, so two reasonably evenly matched cars here, you would think. Cheetham, Class B champion from a couple of years ago, and overall champion indeed. Alan Henderson, driver that's done a lot of MX5 racing down the years as well. Successful in that.
He's won a couple of these Club Enduro races. He won at Alton Park last year, and he won back in 2017 at Snetterton, driving with Daniel Irving. So yeah, he's won a couple of these races before, and I suspect, get that Lotus running well for a whole distance, he could well win another.
That's right. Henderson trying to get past Cheetham on the road here. Different laps though they're on. Henderson crowding the car to the right, trying to find a gap that's not there. Cheetham moves across to take the racing line into Redgate Corner, and Henderson there not close enough to him, so possibly the push a little bit quicker down the Wheatcroft straight. Maybe through the twisty bits Henderson has an advantage. Sweeping through the Craners and on towards Old Hairpin.
So here you see Cole Swift getting past Christopher Freeman to be the leading pit stopper, or true pit stopper, in my belief of what's going on.
Yeah, there's one or two others that just got a bit of a sort of pencil question mark next to their names, haven't they? Because they either perhaps didn't stop, we think, at the right time or for long enough. And that will be dealt with, no doubt, as the race goes on by the officials in race control. Once they have made their decisions, we'll find out about them.
Here's the Seat that's in the BTCC livery, isn't it, of Scott Parkin and Nicholas Bosch. The race leaders now got involved in that battle. So that's 3 cars on 3 different laps. Cheetham, Henderson and Locke. And Locke's going to come past both of them, is he, on the outside line into the Melbourne hairpin, into the Goddard's hairpin, I should say. But he'd gone round the outside of Henderson, but then he run out of road, and Henderson nips up the inside of both of them on the exit of the corner. They're free abreast as they cross the line.
Yeah, it's a great sight. It's not really a true race, though, because they're on different laps, but it is the leader on the road, leader on the time screws, that actually now is the leader of these three cars as well. So they turn their way through the cradles.
Behind, Mark Mercer's now got the better of William Caswell to go third. So we saw that battle earlier. Now the BMW's got itself ahead of the Seat.
Looking at all the drivers that are improving their times, the 117 car, the BMW Compact of Martin Gadsby and Ian Jones, that's just in its personal best lap of the race, running in 17th position. It's Ian Jones at the wheel at the moment, I think, because that car's not yet made its stop.
Alan Henderson's finally got himself ahead of Steve Cheetham on the road. Been watching them going around for the last couple of laps. There is the 117 car that you just mentioned in classic DTM BMW livery, which looks great. And it's just been lapped by those three quick cars down towards the Essex. So Joe Lock leads now by 8.6 seconds. He'll be sharing with Ash Hicklin. Both of them more used to driving radicals than this BMW, but Joe Lock's gone well in this first hour, and we shall see how Ash Hicklin's pace compares after the pit stop.
When we first saw Joe Lock, as off goes the 14 car, which is Andy Stocko. I think it's still. Oh no, they changed, didn't they? So it could well be David McDonald. Although we didn't see them actually do a driver change. It was Andy Stocko's that started the race. Andy Stocko, I should say, and another spinner. That's the Edward Christie car, isn't it? Number 481. Just at the exit of the Fogarty S's. Luckily, he's not found the gravel trap, so just waiting for a gap in the traffic to rejoin. But yeah, we're not sure who's at the wheel of the 14 car now, really. Stocko started, but it might be David McDonald that took over without us noticing. And in fact, it's just gone through past the Edward Christie car there. There's the 117 car, which is the one I was just talking about. Ian Jones handing over to Martin Gadsby then, having just done his personal best lap of the race. So as we are roughly at the halfway point of the race, this will be a mandatory 3.5 minute stop. The driver out, and only once the driver is out can the refuelling begin. You can see the driver now repurposed there with the fire extinguisher as a safety precaution. In as well comes the number 66 car just behind. That's the 318 Ti of Jonathan Hayes and Paul Subiani, the drivers from Shrewsbury in their 2.8 litre car. It's an upgraded engine, I would think, in that car. So, some comments on the YouTube comment section earlier on about the unreliability of the BMWs. We're having a few issues with the BMWs in the early part of this race, but those two look to be going strong. And here are some Mazda MX-5s. Ivor Mayers is one of them, the 316 car, and 176 is the Matthew Pickford and Brian Chandler car. Now, they were originally due to be out in a Lotus Exige, but it was a late change to an MX-5 for those two.
Yeah, and it's Matt Pickford that's at the wheel. Those two, they're experienced MX-5 drivers. Brian Chandler, a former champion, I think. And joining in is the Alex Miller and John Langridge car as well. So we've got three MX-5s together. I think it's still Alex Miller at the wheel of that one. So none of those cars are pitted, but Alex Miller is lapping the other two. Going well. All Mark III MX-5s. So newer model than what we saw out in the championship race earlier. Meanwhile, across the line, Joe Lock does another fastest lap of the race, 1 minute 41.235. So that car going well, continuing to go well, with now 11.5 seconds out in the front of this race. And I think there's that Matt Pickford pulling off into the pit, so Brian Chandler will get a go.
Looked like it. The 7 car is holding well. Oh, there is the 176 car just going in, as you mentioned, the late substitute for the Exige that those two were due to be racing. variety of different penalties can be handed out in the Club Enduro Championship, and included within that is refuelling in a manner incompatible with general safety as well. So I'm sure that's something as well the officials will be keeping a close eye on during the course of this race as well. And it's quite a steep penalty for that, and quite rightly too. It's a stop and go for at least 5 minutes if you're found to have transgressed that particular rule, if you've not followed all the regulations that you're required to there. So, coming up to the halfway point in this race, there is that 14 car, Stocko and McDonald car, wheel to wheel with the MX5 of number 71, that is, isn't it? So that's the Langridge car. But it's not Langridge at the moment, I don't think. Alex Miller, the other driver.
Another car's pitted underneath the commentary position here is the Volkswagen Golf of John Maudsley and Stuart Mead. A couple of drivers have converted their car over from the production GTI Championship and had a decent run last year. They finished just inside the top 10 within the Class B Championship. There's Matt Wallace on the screen. He's just dropped down to 7th position. Adam Howarth in the E36 M3 made his way past on the previous lap. See, Colin Gillespie's still going, isn't he? So that car seemed to fix itself and is back up into 18th position.
It was at least twice, wasn't it, that we saw it stop momentarily in the early part of that race. Some kind of electrical issue, I suspect. And
that's the Mercer BMW, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. So the BMW unreliability that people have been commenting on YouTube seems to have recurred here. You're right, that is the Mark Mercer BMW, I think, which was running in 3rd place. Yellow flags were before that car. It's well off the circuit though, isn't it? So it shouldn't be a problem from the point of view of a safety car or anything. Just had the 1 hour point of the race gone, quickly run down on the order. 86 it is, Joe Lock leading. In 2nd place it's the number 87 car of George Healer. 3rd, 41, it was Mark Mercer, although we've just seen that car stop. So up to 3rd now has gone the 126 car of William Caswell. 5th will be the 34 car of David Griffin. 6th will be the 21 car of Adam Howarth. That's your top 6 overall. Class B being led at the moment by number 16, Phil Driver in the Boxster, and Class C by Alec Livesley still, I think, in the number 777 Honda Civic.
Yes, so that is both those class leaders yet to stop. So 8 seconds the lead gap to come down to. Joe Lock is starting to be caught again by George Haler, and the Mercer BMWs come back to life. The BMWs might have unreliability, but they do not die. They come back.
It would seem that way.
Mark Mercer's back on the road. He did a good thing though, didn't he? Because he has experience getting well off the road, so it didn't interfere with the race. Although it doesn't look like it's going particularly well, but he's just getting it back to the pits, and then as long as you get it back to the pits, that's okay, rather than stopping on the circuit.
Yeah, podium's probably out of the question now, though, unfortunately.
Joe Lock may have done a couple of slow laps, but now he's quick again. Now he's got through the traffic. 1 minute 41.166, another new lap record. So we've broken the lap record a number of times in this race. I think immediately we were under the lap record on lap 2. Then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. About 8 times I think the lap record's been broken within this race. See the Montagu's BMW, we're still going, so we may get to see. Yeah, Stuart Hall getting aboard that car now in his W Racing Team Audi overalls. So we'll see how quickly that can go and whether perhaps Stuart can break the lap record.
Wouldn't be a surprise, would it? Because it was the car that was on pole. Sitting up at the front of the field.
Yes.
As into the pits came the 41 car then. Mark Mercer, no doubt when it goes out, it'll be David that takes over if it goes out, having had those dramas just at roughly the hour mark of the race.
Into the pits has come William Caswell from third, and he will hand over to Brad Kaler in their Seat Leon. Alex Miller hasn't yet got past Ivan Mayers, has he?
He's not.
I think he's trying to lap him, but he seems to be stuck behind.
Yeah, I guess those two cars of Alex's will hand over to John. John Langridge later in the race. They are relatively evenly matched though, so it's not necessarily easy to get in. Here's the 4 car.
Yeah, that's our pit stopping Class B leader, I think, Christopher Freeman, who's usually a front runner within Class B from last year, but I don't think actually won a race, no, but they did finish second in the championship, just a point behind Luke Handley. Here's Matt Wallace, who's yet to pit, isn't he? He's in what is now 5th place after the Caswell car pitted.
Yeah, Matt usually goes quite deep into the race, doesn't he? Does the longest stint of the two compared to his brother Simon usually.
Here's the Mercer BMW, which kind of looks like it's about to be put into retirement.
I suspect you may be right there, unfortunately. Managed to get that car back. See the minimum weight shown on the sticker on the rear window there, and all of the classes in Club Enduro are based on a power to weight ratio, and therefore once your power output for your car is known, they calculate the minimum weight accordingly, and that's what's measured now. Very close between those MX-5s there. Ivan Mayers with the roof and Alex Miller without, and another MX-5 is going to get in on the action as well, which is Matthew Tidmarsh, I think, who's starting that car. Chris Webster also showing that car this weekend, and it's Tidmarsh that's going to go through.
And that's for position on Alex Miller. That's for second within Class C, and I think Miller being held up perhaps a bit by the traffic, and that has allowed Matthew Tidmarsh through.
Yeah, Tidmarsh was 4th in Class C last season in the championship, driving on his own. He's got another driver with him this season. Just had a shakedown of that car at Blighton a week ago, having made various improvements over the winter. The Flying Tangerine racing car, as it is known. 55 minutes left to go.
We just saw there Alex Miller's now pitted, so he will get out of his car and John Langridge will get into it. And now we are into the second half of this race. Joe Locke leads by 18 seconds, so he's starting to get away from George Haler now. Third is Dave Griffin, 4th is Adam Hauer, 5th is Matt Wallace, and the Holden into the top 6, a car that's driven by Matthew Taylor. But they will get to pit, of course. The leading true pit stopper continues to be Cole Swift, and by a decent margin.
Of course, while all of this has been going on, Joe Locke has continued to put in some pretty good lap times out in front, hasn't he? So how good a position will that put him in, and for the second part of the race, do you think, Josh?
The problem is, if they hit under green, their rivals, or their main rivals, did not, so they should be behind.
Yeah.
So what, 3.5 minutes is 2 laps, more than 2 laps, isn't it?
Yeah.
Coming down the pit lane as well.
They need a safety car, really, don't they? At some point.
Indeed. But they could really end up with second still, because there's not another class. They've got the other Class A car that has pitted under green is the Caswell Kaler car, and they were ahead of them, and they're just behind Baker and Swift. They should end up in second, really. The question mark is over what's going on with Steve Cheatham's pit stop, isn't it?
Yeah. Phil Drybrook, well, who's going well, leading Class B, in fact, into the pits in the 3.2 litre Porsche Boxster. Now he's doing this 2-hour race on his own. He has to get out while the car's being refueled, of course.
It's great to see that he's used Club Enduro as a way back into racing, because he raced in British GT half a decade or so ago and had a massive accident at Brands Hatch in an Aston Martin GT3, which I think he had a bit of time out and come back into club racing and I'm sure enjoying himself, and been running in the lead of Class B, which I'm sure he's been enjoying. There's Luke Handley though, the Class B champion from last year. Not sure he's going to have the best result out of this race. He's currently 29th, which is 13th within Class B. The leader's just done another fastest lap in. We're into the 40s now, 1 minute 40.832, which we're now getting to the point where we're 2.5 seconds under the lap record coming into this meeting.
Looked like the Andy Stocco car was indicating as if it was going to come into the pits as well. That we could just see that just out of shot. In fact, there goes the Stocco car into pit lane, and that will not be for a scheduled stop, I don't think, although it could be a scheduled stop now.
Although it should be, because I don't think the one earlier was a scheduled stop.
Yeah, exactly. But the pace that it's arrived in the pits suggests it might not be.
They've got fuel ready, so I think they're not going to do a scheduled stop. So perhaps they're just being cautious on the way into the pits.
Okay.
Lots of cars pitting now, by the way. Matthew Taylor's come in for Will Ashmore. You can just see behind the BMW there. Then the Seat as well, they're doing their driver change. The Leon TDI from Scott Parkin to Nicholas Bosch. So lots of pit stops. There's Stuart Hall with his arm out the window. They're not too sure what was going on there.
Is he just trying to keep out of the way of other cars, perhaps?
Yeah, he knows he's not in the race now, doesn't he? So he doesn't want to get involved.
Yeah, and he's just a very experienced driver, of course, so he'll be mindful of the other drivers around him that are still racing, and especially if he perhaps thinks the car's not quite performing as it should. He'll be a little cautious, I would think, in that respect. Not being cautious there is the 126 on the brakes. And that's the Brad Kaler car, isn't it now? Brad's at the wheel.
Oh, yeah, perhaps they're a bit further down on A4. It looked like the timing screen hadn't gone through. But there's a lot of Class B cars now between them and Cole Swift.
There's one that was off briefly.
Was it? Was it Brad Kaler? Yes, because he's falling back behind the BMW.
Yeah.
So Stuart Hall might be regretting letting him through, then seeing him chuck it off the road at the next corner almost. But Stuart Hall was a number of those drivers that started out in T cars all those years ago. Got up to British Formula 3, then moved over to Roll Centre Racing's Pescarola programme at Le Mans, and they finished 4th at Le Mans back in 2007. And it was just a starter motor away from a Peugeot failing and getting onto the overall podium, which for a privateer was a fantastic effort. And since then we've been Stuart as an Aston Martin works driver, and lots of customers in GT racing nowadays. So back to this race, and the leader is in. Joe Lock is in to hand over to Ash Hicklin in the Team Grey Motorsport BMW M3 GTR. Yeah, so obviously they decided that they couldn't wait any longer. They couldn't wait for a safety car, which might have been advantageous to them. But they needed to make a stop, presumably because of the amount of fuel that the car carries. So with about 48 3/4 minutes of the race left to go, that car in. And so that'll be George Haler that takes over with the lead on the road. But the vast majority of cars now have made their stop. Probably 3/4 of them, I would think, if not more, have made their stop now. There is the Lock car in the middle of shot. So they should come out, what, about 20 seconds in front of Brad Kaler? And there's 26 seconds from Kaler to the car in front of them. So I think we could have a Class B car in a very handy position overall by the end of this, Ian, with their early stops.
Yeah, and quick cars as well that made their stops early. Which is one of them.
Here is Will Beach, who is pretty well up on that overall order, having pitted in the Volkswagen Golf. But behind Christopher Freeman, who would appear to be the first of the Class B stoppers, and in fact is actually second in Class B with just John Atherton yet to pit. Ivan Mayers is good at keeping cars behind him, isn't he? Because Matthew Tidmarsh now can't find a way through.
And that's the Andrew Stacey
racer, of course.
Yeah, Andrew Stacey Lotus just ahead of them. There's Tidmarsh.
Oh, he's gone through now, hasn't he? Stacey's in a good position because he's only 5 seconds behind William Beach. Now, how Tim Gray Motorsport getting on? Because this is quite new to them, isn't it? Pit stops.
Yeah,
haven't done too much of that.
Absolutely, we're used to seeing them in sort of bike sports and things like that. This is a little bit new. They've done some of this, but a bit of a change of racing for them. You can see the big wing on the back. You could see that when they got the sort of boot flipped, couldn't you, as well? Just how massive that wing is. Tidmarsh didn't get through, did he?
He got down the inside, but yeah, by the time they got to Redgate, obviously Ivan Mears was back through. George Haler's carried on, so he's now going to lead the motor race. 1 minute 42, just on his best lap of the race, in fact, is 55 seconds ahead of Matt Wallace. That's a big gap. So Matt Wallace perhaps not gone as well as he would have hoped. His best lap is almost 3 seconds off the pace. The McEwens in that Porsche Cayman, so they've been off the pace too. I thought they might have gone better.
Yeah.
On the comment, Sam McKee has said he can confirm that Ivan Mears can produce the widest MX-5 in the world. And I think we've seen it in this race. We'll look forward to having Sam out with us in Road Sports at that next live streamed meeting.
Yeah, that's in 3 weeks' time.
Ash Hicklin's gone already. Was that 3.5 minutes?
Well, time will tell. It seems as though it was on the cusp at best of that, but they will obviously cut it as fine as they can. They don't want to be stationary for a second longer, but it was certainly very close from my observation as to whether that was 3.5 minutes stationary or not.
Well, we'll see what the next lap was, and if it was sort of under 5 minutes, that would not be right.
No. All these cars run on treaded tyres, no slicks in the Tigua Club Enduro Championship. They have to use tyres from MS UK list 1A, 1B or 1C. It's a list of specific tyres that are allowed to be used in circuit racing.
This is a battle for position for third and fourth of in Class B, we can see. Will Beach has been caught by William Stacey pretty rapidly, to be fair, for the Lotus. Looking to find a way past the Gulf. Lots of Gulfs we've got this weekend, haven't we, in Club Enduro? I think they were the first, them and Luke Handley were the first Gulfs we had out last year. Now there's quite a few of them this weekend. But I think he's going to lose his position to William Stacey through Coppice Corner. The Lotus is up the inside. Might lead out down the straight though.
It's a close run thing, but yeah, the Gulf prevails.
George Haler in the pits, by the way, the leader for about a lap.
Which that means Matthew Wallace will take the lead, which I don't think it's the first time that's happened. That he's made a very late stop.
Of course.
Yeah, he might do yet, I suppose.
The Lock Hicklin lap was 5 minutes 34.
Okay, it's probably all right then.
Yep, and they're 51 seconds behind Rob Baker. Stacey goes down the inside of Grice. Can he hang on though of Grice? It's Will Beach now, isn't it? In that car? Can Beach come back down to Redgate? He's got a bit more grunt in the Gulf. He's going to have a go. This is for what is currently third within Class B. They're absolutely side by side. William Stacey goes through though in the Rob Boston Racing Lotus.
Yeah, and so this is going to be an important battle for quite a high position just once all the pit stops finally do shake out. Ahead of them in Class B, you've got the Atherton car that's yet to stop, the number 88 Lotus Elise, and you've got the Freeman car, number 4, Chris Freeman, in the Honda Civic Type R, and I think he's driving that solo in the end, isn't he? Shout out to Manoj Patel, just by the way, Josh, up to 5th in the 112 car, yet to make his stop, but he is a great clubman and indeed has driven that car to the circuit today.
As you say that, he brings it into the pit lane.
There you go, just so everyone can have a closer look at it, but yep, he's just about run as long as he can, I should think, before the fuel tank runs dry.
The MX-5s are side by side again. As Ivan Mears is hanging on just about in front of Matthew Tidmarsh, not for position, but it's kind of holding up Tidmarsh's pace. a bit. But saying that, Tidmarsh was on his near his personal best. Well, Steve Cheetham in the pit lane, by the way, so he has pitted. And Tidmarsh round the outside of Mares and has finally got through. But we've seen that before, and then on the exit of the corner, Ivor Mares fights back.
And there's a penalty for Andy Stoko, number 14, or at least the car that's shared with David McDonald. That's for exceeding track limits, so there's a 5-second time penalty for car 14. Let's go down to the pit lane now, and we can hear from Joe Locke, who's with Matt Suckling.
Yeah, down here in the pit lane with Joe Locke, who's just jumped out of the race leading BMW. Joe, fantastic stint out there. A few issues we understand, but the lap times are really good towards the end for you.
Yeah, I think we had to just. Carl managed to do me off the start, and it was one of them battles where I thought, you know, we're going to have a good race for the whole race, and then obviously he's got a larger fuel tank. He was able to box earlier on me, and I think for us it was just go as head down, you know, as fast as we can for as long as we can, and I basically went until I had no fuel left. So. Now hopefully Ash can finish the race and keep the pace up.
And is that one of the reasons you didn't come in that early with the safety car, because of the fuel?
Yeah, it was a prime time to come in. You know, Carl, I'd imagine Carl benefited massively from it, and we were praying for another safety car, but it never came. So I had to come in when I had no fuel, and literally the last 2 laps I kept having fuel starvation, so I just had to make the call and come in.
You were really quick before the pit stop as well. You were all over the back of Carl, putting the pressure on, which is what you need to be doing in this race.
Yeah, well, that's you know, as hard as it is, you don't want to do that really, because you don't want to destroy your tyres. But it's hard not to do that, you know. And I know Carl from the past, and it's, you know, it's nice to have a good race with him. And he did a great bit of driving around the outside of me. And I just thought, you know, I'll hopefully do the same back. But you know, he pitted early, so I didn't have to do that move. And yeah, I think he, you know, it's going to be an interesting finish.
You just had a quick word with your team boss Tim Gray. Any words there from him?
Yeah, he was constantly in communication with me. You know, it's a massive help. You know, this is the first time we've had the headsets on and stuff like that. You know, it's a massive confidence booster, knowing, you know, where you are, what you need to do, and it's you don't feel like you're on your own. You feel like it's a team effort then. And he's done a spot on job. You know, the paddle shift and everything from himself. You know, everything, the car, the setup, the advice, everything, you know, comes from Tim. So, you know, I wouldn't be where I was without him.
You've done a really good job. You've now got to watch to see how Ash gets on, but I'm sure he'll bring it home for you. Yeah,
well, hopefully. I don't really know where we are, to be honest. I think we're in the lead, but I need to go and have a look, obviously, at the timing screens and stuff, and just have a relax. I think it was quite a long stint, so yeah, I'm happy.
Good stuff. Well done, Jay.
All right, cheers, mate. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Matt Suckling and Joe Locke. It was that was down in the pit lane. 39 minutes of the race left to go. Looking at the screens, he's showing in 6th place at the moment, but there's 3 drivers ahead that have yet to make their stops, Josh.
And while we were hearing from him, he lost the lap record, because Chris Boardman in the E36 M3 that was started by Adam Howarth has gone faster, 1 minute 40.574, which is 3 tenths quicker than what Joe Locke was doing. So that's the car that started from the back, and I think it's going to be in for a top 5 finish, something like that. Here's the car that hasn't pitted. That is Matt Wallace. He's still going. You suggested he would. So it's him, John Atherton and Colin Gillespie that haven't pitted, and the leading stopper is Cole Swift with he's Rob Baker, with Ash Hicklin second, 45 seconds behind. That was 51 a couple of laps ago. So Ash Hicklin is catching Rob Baker, but it's a big old gap.
Yeah, so one to keep an eye on. 45 seconds, yeah, as you say. So it's got the makings of an interesting finale. We could have a safety car as well. That could shake things up in the final third of this race. But yes, so just a handful of cars now yet to make their stop, including, I think, Matthew Tidmarsh is yet to make his stop as well, isn't he? Looking at a bit further down our timing screens. Oh, and who's that being pushed into the pit lane? That is the garage. That's the McEwen's car, number 74. And you said earlier on, Josh, that wasn't going as well as you expected it to.
No, I thought that might be a front runner, but it hasn't been. You just mentioned Matthew Tidmarsh, and now he finished. So every time you say someone else pit, they hit their way in. So Chris Webster will be taking over that car. Ivor Mares also hasn't pitted, so the leading Class C stopper, is Jeremy Crook, who's taken over from Alex Livesey, but that might be tight with where Chris Webster comes out. So that'll be one to watch. But there is Ash Hicklin. How did that lap go for him? Quicker again, gap's down to 44 seconds. But you'd think it's just not going to be enough without anything else happening on pure pace. It's going to have to be a lot quicker to catch Rob Baker.
Another good lap for Chris Boardman, still in the 1 minute 40s on the previous lap as well at 1:40.956. And certainly he's getting some support from Sean O'Brien on the YouTube comments, suggesting he might be up for the win, but I think that's a tall order. Would need a lot of things to fall his way.
From the back of the grid, it's been a great run from them. There's the Diet Coke BMW. Who's in that now? It's Wesley Butcher, isn't it? Making his debut in the championship. He's just been lapped by Ash Hicklin. We've had Atherton and Gillespie in, so out the front of the field it's just Matt Wallace yet to pit. Looking further down, Ivan Mayers also will need to make his pit stop. Yeah, and so they've still got 20 minutes in which to make their stops. They have to be made before the last 15 minutes of the race. So that's still plenty of time to make their stops, of course. There's Ash Hicklin then, in the number 86 car, having taken over from Joe Locke. Very rapid in bike sports, of course, the past few seasons. Joe Locke, of course, we've also seen out racing in bike sports as well. And they're both making the switch to race together in Club Enduro this season. There is the 21 car going through, which, as you say, is the one that we've been talking about, because that's Chris Boardman at the wheel of that car, trying to get ahead of the 14 of Stokoe and McDonald. But yeah, the car that is just ahead of this one on the road then is the one that's got the fastest lap, and it's sort of quite an unlikely looking car, isn't it? Of all the cars on the grid, it's not the one that you perhaps pick out to be the one that was setting the lap record, Josh. Although saying that, yesterday Giles Groombridge, the competition secretary for the club, told me that's a car to watch out for. So Chris Boardman, very quick indeed in it, and that's been working its way up the order. Obviously had an issue not to qualify this morning. And if it started at the front, that would have been one ready to watch out for, I think. Meanwhile, Matt Wallace is in, isn't he? He's just hopped in front of our commentary position. So he will be in, and then we'll get a real look at what the true order is as we head into the final half hour of the motor race. Yeah, there'll be just take another lap or two, won't it, just for the cars to sink down the order that will be sinking down the order, and then we'll perhaps maybe with half an hour of the race to go, give you a bit of a rundown on the positions. Just looking at Phil Driver on the screens, he pitted under green, which has put him down to 7th within Class B. All the cars in front pitted under safety car really, and it'll be Christopher Freeman that leads it by about 10 seconds over Will Stacey, so that's a gap to watch. And then William Beach in 3rd position within Class B, and there you can see the gulf of Beach, who's been passed by William Stacey and has fallen 7 seconds behind. A lot of BMWs heading into Goddard's then, and a Golf as well, in the form of William Beach, as they turn their way through. And you've got the Celica in the background as well, the 827 car. That was in the pits earlier, wasn't it? So that's obviously made it back out again. Rowan Lundy and Richard Lundy from Onga. That's the atmospheric pit lane shot. Very arty. And we watch the cars up at McLean's. There is the 87 then, which is the Jonathan Beeson car for this second part of the race, and that's running in 5th position at the moment. It'll be a little bit higher up than that
once these pit stops are shaken out, Josh?
He's about to get a place higher because this is for position alongside Christopher Freeman, the Class B leader. So that becomes 4th, which should become 3rd after they pass the Wallaces in the pit lane.
Yeah.
But what they've got to watch out for is Chris Boardman, who's 15 seconds behind, but setting that lap record pace. So that, that could be an interesting battle, I think.
Yeah, the Healer and Beeson car, now being driven by Beeson, is lapping the 144s. Boardman lapping last time around in the 141s, but he has done a 140 before. So with half an hour of the race left to go or so, then you'd think they'd catch them up. There's the Holden Commodore that's running in 13th at the moment. Matty Taylor and Will Ashmore. So they're still plugging away.
Freeman's just gone through short, and there's William Stacey chasing him for the Class B lead. The gap's down to 4.6 seconds, and Stacey is lapping a good chunk quicker at the moment, so I don't think Class B's over with yet. And another lap record. This time it's Chris Boardman again, 1 minute 40.4. So we're now at the point where we're going 3 seconds quicker than Marcus Clutton's lap record from a couple of years ago.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
It really shows the pace that we've improved in Club Enduro over the years. Be interesting actually to look back to those early races to see what lap times we were doing then. I'll have a look at that, Ian, while you talk about what's on the screen.
Okay, well, what's on screen at the moment is the number 49 car, which is that of Will Stacey, driven from Whittam in the Lotus Elise. Beautifully turned out machine by RBR. Coming off Copse Corner now, and he is chasing after Chris Freeman. At the beginning of the lap, the gap between them was 4.6 seconds. It looks like it's come down a little bit now. Behind them both, though, you've got bearing down on them that Boardman BMW, and that looked like the number 10 John Maudsley and Stuart Mead Golf GTI Mark 5 that we briefly saw going through shot as well. So there's Will Stacey. What have you found, Josh?
We're basically going 5 seconds quicker than when the championship first came to the Donington Park Grand Prix circuit. So yeah, pace has increased brilliantly. Really, a Class B car are going quicker than what the Class A cars were back then.
And what year was that we first came to the GP track?
2017, because in 16 we were on the national circuit.
So yeah, Club Enduro coming on a long way. I guess that's sort of being evidenced by the higher proportion of cars in Classes A and B this year, in particular Class A. And Class C, unfortunately, is dropping off a little bit, but hopefully those numbers will recover as the season goes on. And these classes on Paris Way, of course, Josh.
I think now we're probably seeing a true order on the timing screen, on your timing tower on the left-hand side. And as we expected, it is Rob Baker that leads by just over half a minute from Ash Hicklin. Then in 3rd place is Jonathan Beeson. 4th is Chris Freeman, leading Class B. 5th is William Stacey. 6th is Chris Boardman. 7th is William Stacey. 8th is Brad Kaler. 9th is Andy Bailey. And in 10th position, just waiting to see if it's Wallace or Butcher that comes through, but that's pretty much how the order is up front. Class Ivan Mayers has still not pitted, so Class C is yet to be wound out. And on your screen, suddenly, Chris Boardman's passed both Freeman and Stacey, and the Lotus is up with the Honda, which was 3.4 seconds in front of him at the start of the lap. So Class B battle is on with 28 minutes to go.
Yeah, so this is the battle for victory potentially in Class B then. Chris Freeman, number 4 in the Honda Civic Type R, but Will Stacey in the Lotus goes up the inside at Goddard Hairpin. He's got his nose in front. Can he keep it there on the exit of the corner? Side by side as they come across the line, past our commentary box windows and up towards Redgate Corner. It's going to be Freeman that's got the inside line for Redgate Corner. There's still 27 minutes to go, so the race doesn't need to be settled at this corner, but Will Stacey keen to try to get through. He's not quite made it yet. I've got that's the Webster MX-5 just ahead of them, a Class C car that they need to lap, which they do now. But a real good scrap between these two cars, both in Class B, but very different types of car. And Stacey
almost almost got into the back of the Honda into the old hairpin. He just about avoided it.
He did.
He's done a lot of one-make race in MX-5s and Lotus Elise Cup, so he's pretty used to close racing. William Stacey trying to get himself ahead of Christopher Freeman. As they crossed the line, it was 1/1000 of a second that separated them. Right around the outside at Coppice Corner. This would be a fantastic move by William Stacey. And I think, well, he might have done it, but of course down the straight the Honda's got more power.
Yeah, it's the Honda that's just getting its nose back in front and will take the line into the Fogarty S's. A real good scrap, very evenly matched around the lap, these cars, of course. It's for 5th and 6th overall. Their best laps are actually nearly 2 seconds apart. Freeman a bit slower than Stacey, quite a bit slower. And they're both single driver efforts as well, these cars now.
Stacey's 1.5 seconds under Rob Boston's lap record within Class B, who's of course his team manager.
Yeah, very impressive effort. Not quite close enough to have a go at Goddard this time, so I don't think there'll be 1,000 between them as they come across the line this time quite. But it's only a couple of car lengths. While this was going on, of course, we did see the 199 car being pushed into the garage. That's the Patrick Schaffer, Simon Killam car. And I think Stuart Cunliffe was driving, due to drive that as well.
In front of them, Chris Baldwin's done another lap record, 1:40.0 now, which is almost a second quicker than anybody else has done in the race. And he's only 1.2 seconds behind Jonathan Beeson, so should pass him very shortly.
But do we reckon 3rd is the limit of his ambition? Looking at the time screen, I suspect it probably is.
Yeah, 40 seconds to the next car, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's a really good effort from the back of the grid. And
it certainly is.
And it's a very quick car, so I think Giles was spot on with that to be one to watch. Right, what can William Stacey do about Chris Freeman this time? Is he going to set up that outside move into Coppice again? It's a really quick corner, and the Lotus this time tucks in underneath. This is the problem with having a lesser powered car. You might be quicker over a lap, but actually passing the more powerful cars is not particularly easy. Down into the S's then. Freeman still in front. Stacey can be quick through here as the cars change direction. The Lotus is good at that, but of course can't carry any more speed really. The Honda's doing because it can't run into the back of him. What about the inside line for the Melbourne hairpin? Yeah, he's later on the brakes, and William Stacey this time goes through, but can he hang on down to the next corner, Ian?
Yeah, well, it's climb up to Goddard's, and of course in a straight line we've seen the Civic a bit quicker, but I don't think he's going to be able to do anything about him. No, he's not. So it looks like Will Stacey, after a good 2 laps of trying, has finally, or possibly 3, has finally made it through and into the lead of Class B. I'm just looking at how far back is the Beach car in 3rd place within that class. It's quite a way back, isn't it?
Yeah, I think he's slower than Chris Freeman. I think it's more that Will Stacey's been so quick to fight his way through. The gap for the lead has come down quite a lot, really. It was 51 seconds when Ash Hickling came out the pits. Last I saw was under half a minute. We're waiting for Hickling to come through again. Whether Rob Baker's just pacing himself, or that car's not running perhaps as quick as it might be. So Ash Hickling will shortly complete his 49th lap. Here he comes across the line. The gap's now 27 seconds. He's going 2 seconds a lap quicker. At that rate, it's not going to be too far away.
It's not. We've got 23 minutes left, which is going to equate to 14 or 15 laps, isn't it, I would think. Yeah, about 14 laps, I should think. And 2 seconds a lap, it's going to be close. Yeah, it's going to be mighty close if the continues at that rate. I do wonder if Rob Baker might get a few messages from the team that suggest that he might just want to find a little bit more time, a little bit more pace, and maybe if he is driving within himself and within the car's capabilities, he stops doing that just to make sure he isn't going to get caught before the end. But as you say, it could be a problem for the car.
I think Stuart was given up, hasn't he? Oh, in fact it wasn't Stuart in the car actually, that looked like Peter Montague has got back out, so perhaps Stuart never got into it.
Yeah, I don't think we ever saw any blistering times, did we?
No, it's still in the 1:45, so that makes more sense. So I guess really there's no point Stuart driving it. Oh yeah, there he's Joe. I can see him with the face mask on.
Yeah. Well, I guess
so
Peter's the customer, as it were.
Yeah, as there was no result to get.
Yeah.
Let him have as much track time as possible. But there's Baker, 1:44.9. Now, is he stuck behind Steve Cheetham, perhaps? Has he not been able to pass him, and that's what's been holding his lap times back?
What times is Cheetham doing? Because he's obviously made an extra stop, hasn't he? In the end.
He was actually half a second quicker than Baker on the last lap. But it's 24 seconds now. That was 3 seconds on that lap from Hicklin. Tell you what, this has been a really good drive from Ash Hicklin in his first race in a GT type car, I think.
Yeah, I think someone on the stream, Tom, was saying it's going to be a tall order to beat Baker and Swift at this point. Over 40 seconds clear of Lock and Hicklin. Well, that was 13 minutes ago. And since then, well, there's probably been about 13 seconds or so made up by, probably about 17 seconds made up by the second place car. So it's not looking such a tall order now. Still not going to be easy.
I certainly wasn't expecting it to be this close. I was thinking it would just stay at that 50 seconds or whatever, but
yeah,
certainly not the case.
I must admit I was. But yeah, the Steve Cheetham, the position of that car on the road is an interesting dynamic now as well, isn't it? There in the background, I think you can see the Ash Hicklin car kind of just coming down the exhibition straight towards the Fogarty S's, just behind the that's the Maudsley car, isn't it?
Yeah.
So there's Hicklin now. Best lap of the race at 140.832 in that car. Best lap of the race altogether for Boardman, a 140.050.
Here comes Baker on Cheetham. This is quite an important overtake, although it's not for position. On lap time wise, it's pretty crucial. He's on the outside line, they're level on the exit of the corner, watching this outside the commentary box window. I think he's going to back out down the crane of curves. They're absolutely side by side. There they are on your screens, and he's had to back out. And the gap is down to 22 seconds.
Yeah, that lap time through, it was 2.6 seconds made up by Hicklin on Rob Baker, who's still unable to get past Steve Cheetham's Porsche then, as they head through Schwantz curve up towards the right-hander at McLean's. Just under 20 minutes of this 2-hour race left to go then.
This is proper endurance racing stuff with a chase on to the end. Absolutely great stuff. So they're sort of racing each other, Baker and Hicklin, although at the moment not on the circuit together.
No,
but, the lap times are intriguing indeed.
We've had a good battle in Class B as well. As far as Class C is concerned, Ivan Mayer's still not been in, has he? So he's leaving his pit stop to the last possible moment. So if that's going to be looking like it's going to be Crook and Livesley in best place to win Class C, I would think.
Yeah.
From Miller and Langridge in second. There's quite a gap between those two cars though.
Right, Baker's having another go at Cheetham now, and I think he's done it. The outside line into the hairpin at Goddard's. Has he? Kind of, maybe?
Just about. Not convincing though.
If he can stay ahead, then we'll see what type of lap times he can do in clean air. And
crosses the line
quicker,
now. There's another high 43, wasn't it?
Yeah, it will be the next lap, which will be the interesting one.
Yeah. But what will Hicklin do this time? So it's a 141.3 he did last time through. So he's just going to cross the line now, and he's done a 141.4. So very consistent, and the gap down to just under 20 seconds now. He's gaining at about a second a minute, isn't he? And we've got 18 minutes left to go.
Might need to just extend the race by 5 or 10 minutes to see the battle on track. But yeah, the next lap's important to see what Baker can do without the Porsche in front of him. Now, where is Steve Cheetham? He's well done, isn't he? 15th, so that's... of course, he had that extra pit stop for whatever reason.
Of course, Baker and Swift in combination, Josh, they won 3 out of the 4 races last year and were second in the other, weren't they? So to beat them will be quite a scalp.
Well, they're not getting away from Steve Cheetham, is he?
No.
If anything, was coming under pressure.
And they are lapping 2.5 seconds pretty much off what the car's been capable of in this race as well.
I guess he's done another new lap record.
It's Chris Boardman, isn't it?
140.023. which I think a very small fraction of a second quicker than the previous one. Yeah, 27 thousandths quicker than what he'd done 10 minutes ago. Yeah, that's a quick car, so that's going to be one to watch in the remaining rounds of the championship. Well, here comes Baker. This lap's a 1:43.7, which is really no quicker than the previous lap.
Yeah,
so I think we have got a true chase on.
And
to Ash Hicklin.
Yeah.
So it was 22 seconds, wasn't it, from first to second? So you'd expect it to come down to about 20. It's actually come down to 8. It must have been 20 on the previous lap, mustn't it? It's come down to 18 now. 18.4.
1.2 seconds made on that lap. Yeah, 1.2 seconds made on that lap, Josh. 16.5 minutes to go, as you say. For all of the hard work that Chris Boardman doing, putting in these fastest laps and lap records, it's not actually getting in much closer to Ash Hicklin, because they're about 40 seconds apart, and Hicklin is lapping close to the pace of Boardman.
He's pushing. It was sideways out the old hairpin was Ash Hicklin. So yeah, he's really pushing on. Now the problem could be if he catches any of these Class A back markers which he can't pass. It's obviously easy to pass a slower car in a straight line, but a Columbia Class A car, it's more down to how quick he can go rather than what Rob Baker's doing. But this is a real indication, Ian, that Rob Baker and Cole Smith are not going to have it all their own way this year. Because here they certainly don't seem to have the quickest car. Again, good strategy from Area Motorsport, and the car and its fuel tank has allowed them to do that.
Yeah.
But they're not going to have it easy, I don't think.
Seem not. Not this season. Not today. So there is the Ash Hicklin car climbing the hill again towards Goddard's with just about 15 minutes to go. Pit stop window is about to close. Ivan Mayers, according to our screens, hasn't been in, although some suggestion that he has been. But our timer screen says he's not.
That lap, there wasn't much of a gain. Rob Baker was better on a 1:43.1, and Hicklin had that bit of traffic, so the gap's only come down to 18 seconds. Ivan Mayers through the pit lane here, and I can see. So, did he get in before 15 minutes? Possibly not.
It would have been close. It would have been close.
But yeah, he's in the pits now.
Yeah, and there are 14.5 minutes of the race left to go. Back stepping out on the number 16 car, Phil Driver's Boxster. Of course, he was leading Class B for a while.
I think that slowed Hicklin down too. So he's got this bit of traffic now, which is slowing Hicklin's progress, which could be a problem. There's Will Stacey. He's still leading Class B. He's only pulled out 4 seconds to Chris Freeman, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm reading. But I wonder now he's got through. I guess you don't need to push on quite as hard as previously. William Beach is third, Andy Bailey fourth, and Luke Handley, who you saw there near Will Stacey, is fifth within Class B. And
Sam
we can work
McKee.
Class C out shortly.
Well, Sam McKee on the comments thinks that Ash Hicklin's got this. Words to that effect. 13.5 minutes to go. It's looking like a slightly taller order than it was about 5 minutes ago, Josh, I would suggest.
Yes, although that lap was slower for Baker, back into the 44s, but I think Hicklin's lap's going to be slow with the traffic he's had. We're looking on the screen at third place, Chris Boardman, who's absolutely starred in this race, getting the lap record in the E36 M3. Yeah, Hicklin was still quicker than Baker, but not as quick as perhaps he could have been, so the gap is 16.7 seconds. And then this is third place, down into the Melbourne hairpin, Chris Boardman. He's chasing them top two still, but the gap was just too big for him, really. But it's been a really good drive. On the brakes, down into the Goddard's hairpin. I'd suggest this race is going to have the best Class C car, the furthest down the overall order we've seen in a Club Enduro race. Because normally we see them getting towards the overall top 10. But they're not going to be one inside the overall top 20, I don't think. That lap, by the way, by Boardman was a new lap record, again. 1 minute 39.780 now. And he's only 33 seconds behind Ash Hicklin. What did you say that was, 45, something like that? So he has been bringing it down, but yeah, obviously it's too big of a gap.
It is to catch at 12 seconds. Oh, that's going into the garage, isn't it? Yeah, so that's the end of the day for the Montague and Hall car.
Looks like Stuart Hall has had a go in it. He's got into the 42s. But yeah, all perhaps not well with that car today. But here's Baker. I think he's got past Will Stacey rather than Will Stacey trying to pass him. Yeah, 1 minute 43.3. That was a better lap from Baker, but still not great.
Yeah. We'll see the gap back ticking when he comes through in a moment or two.
Here he comes across the line. Slower.
It's gone out. It's the first time that the gap's gone out for a long time.
You can't really afford those slower laps, really.
Yeah.
But it's been a great chase from Ash Hicklin, nevertheless.
Yeah, I mean, spirited drive from him, spirited drive from Chris Boardman and Adam Howarth in the first part of the race to get up the order. Probably more conventional drive from Carl Swift and Rob Baker, who's in the car now. Let's watch number 74, which is the McEwen car back out again.
Yeah. Ivan Mares, not back out the gap pits, I don't think yet, is he? Right, but Jeremy Crook is leading Class C, as you suspected.
And that's the share with Alec Livesley, isn't it, in the Honda?
Yes. Yeah, I think Ivan Mares, is he still in the pit lane? Can't quite see down that end. I think he will be, so that will bring Chris Webster and John Langridge through to second and third. They're only separated by 4.8 seconds. They're both being caught at quite a rate by Jonathan Hayes in the BMW. So Hayes for the podium, possibly, within Class C. So that's one to try and keep an eye on towards the end of this. Oh, it's another new lap record from Chris Boardman. 1 minute 39.7. So he's now less than 30 seconds behind Ash Hicklin. Tell you what, if we had a safety car about half an hour ago, I think Chris Boardman for the victory would have been on. Oh, the Porsche's off. So
was it worth going back out?
Is that down the Craners as well? It was. Is that the tyre marks you can see halfway down the Craner card? I think he's had a big old moment. So that
like
should be an Alex McEwen, who might be back for the pit lane, you'd think.
Maybe so. Little more to be gained from this race.
3 seconds caught that time by Ash Hicklin. So the gap's down to 13. So it's still possible. Yeah, I think we just be 1 or 2 laps too short, maybe.
Yeah, we've got about 5 or 6 laps to go, haven't we, in this race?
Just shooting through shot there ahead of Rob Baker was the battle for Class C that I was mentioning between Paul Sabiani catching John Langridge. A gap with 1.3 seconds at the beginning of the lap, and that will be for third in class because Ivan Mares has come out in 5th. So Sabiani and Hayes should get third, have got third already, so they're ahead of the Mazda now, and I think they might catch Chris Webster before the end. So that's a good drive as well. And is that the fastest lap? Yeah, I think that car's done the fastest lap within Class C, which is almost 2 seconds under Imran Khan's lap record.
Oh, the Holden is pulling off, I'm afraid. Will Ashmore at the wheel of that. It was up inside the top 10 in the early part of the race. It was actually in 10th place immediately before its retirement with 8.5 minutes of the race left to go. That's a big shame for Matty and for Will, because they were winning pretty well overall and in Class A.
Another slow lap from Baker, 1:44.8. Hicklin across the line in traffic, and a lot of traffic to deal with. He's 3.5 seconds quicker. The gap's down to 10 seconds, but he's got to now deal with all the traffic that Rob Baker's had to deal with in the last 2 laps, which may account for those slower laps.
Right, he's got Luke Handley to try to get past, and that is the Colin Gillespie car, isn't it, that's off again? That had
been doing so well. He got back to 16th position, I think.
Yeah, early dramas, but come back strongly, and now within not quite sight of the checkered flag, it's all come to an end. He's well off the road there, down the Exhibition Straight. So hopefully we'll be able to continue towards the end of the race without any more hiccups.
Chris Boardman's only 37 seconds off the lead of the race now. He's going 5 seconds quicker than Rob Baker.
even the laps that aren't lap records are very quick laps, because that last lap was a 1:39.817, just a few hundredths off his lap record of 1:39.758. There is Class C, that is the Class C leader, isn't it? We can see at the moment, Jeremy Crook in the Honda Civic. We've not seen too much of him during the course of this race. He is a fair distance clear of the Tidmarsh and Webster Mazda MX-5, car number 8 that's in second place within that class, although that has an exclamation mark next to it at the moment, which suggests it might have a penalty being applied. We'll see what we can find out about that.
5 seconds, I think, so that'd be track limits.
Yeah.
Better lap from Baker, 1:42.8, so out the traffic. That was a quick lap, and Hicklin's having to deal with the traffic, and he's slower therefore, so that was some of the reason for those last 2 laps. Now I think it's going back into the direction of Rob Baker's hands. 11.7 seconds the gap.
Yeah, I think you're right. But it's been a spirited chase anyway. So there's the treble 7 car of the Class C leader. Class C, of course, for the cars up to 180 brake horsepower per tonne.
Darren Ball's back out. And he's Cayman. He's not going any quicker though. He's done 28 laps in the race compared to 59 of the leader. They've tried to fix it, but it doesn't seem to be any better really. So we've got 5.5 minutes to go. There's a smoky car down the Craners, which is concerning. It's the driver of Porsche that has been going pretty well. 7th within Class B. But something is wrong with that. Is that engine smoke? It doesn't look good either way, which could be making the track a bit slippery for the end of the race. Rob Baker across the line, a slower lap again. He seems to be struggling in traffic, Rob Baker. 1:44.4. What have we got left? 3 laps, I think. And the gap is 10 seconds. And there is Ash Hicklin across the line, who has dealt now with, I think, all that traffic.
Four and a half minutes then left as we head towards the end of the race.
There's Steve Cheetham. He's got himself into 11th. He passed Wesley Butcher recently, which is 7th within Class A, and he's 4 seconds behind Simon Wallace and going quite a bit quicker than him, so we might get another place before the end of the race. There's Ash Hicklin just passing. The Wallace car gets very sideways. No tyre changes, of course, so these tyres have done 2 hours now. That makes those lap record laps even more impressive. I know the fuel tank's getting lighter, so the car's getting lighter, but on old tyres too. So there is Hicklin, 10 seconds behind Rob Baker at the start of the lap. And perhaps was that slide, perhaps on a bit of oil from the Porsche that was smoking a moment ago. And there's a car off as well, so is the track slippery? That's John Atherton. He was 5th within Class B. He's going to get back out, but he might have lost. Yes, he was only 3 seconds ahead of Luke Handley, so he would have lost a position there. But at least the race will continue. Here comes Rob Baker then. What's this lap? 1:43.2, a bit better again. His lap time certainly seemed better when he hasn't got traffic, but Hicklin has brought that gap down by 3 seconds with a personal best to 1:40.19. Gap is 7 seconds. There's 2 laps to go. It's going to be one of the closest finishes in Club Enduro history, I think, Ian, but I don't think he's going to quite make it.
No, it's going to be very close, certainly, but it could easily be about sort of 2 seconds or something like that at the end, couldn't it? Baker in the 1:43s, Hicklin in the 1:40s at the moment, as you say.
I can't remember a race finishing that close before. Just having a Silverstone last year was 6 seconds, so that was pretty good. but we could get better than that.
Absolutely right. And yeah, very, very tight. And considering that Hicklin and Locke took their mandatory pit stop under green flag conditions rather than under a safety car, they've had to sort of overcome that, haven't they?
Yeah.
And they've done a fantastic job to almost sort of unwind that disadvantage that they've been, well, not been given. It's just that when they chose to stop, when they needed to stop.
Very quick through the chicane with Rob Baker, really pushing on. So he's got 1 lap to go. You can see the Hicklin car now in the same shot.
Yeah.
With 7 seconds, but yeah, it's not. Well, you'd think it's not going to be close enough. I wonder if he's struggling with his front tyres, because of course putting all the pressure through the front tyres on the front wheel drive car. 2 hours is a long time. So I'm saying 1:42.7. That was a better lap again. But Hicklin's quicker. The gap's down to 5 seconds. I think we are going to get the closest finish with Stirling Club Enduro, but not an actual on-track battle between the top two.
No, it doesn't look like it. Class B. Oh, is that car stirring a little bit? It looked like it might be. Class B looks like it's going to go the way of Will Stacey. And Class C, as we've said, to Jeremy Crook and Alec Livesley. But here's the second place car turning its way through the old hairpin. It's been a great drive from Joe Locke in the first part, Ash Hicklin in the second part. But yeah, that gap looks as if it's a little bit bigger than 5 seconds now, if anything, Josh.
Yeah. And it hasn't had any traffic, has he, Rob Baker? So that's going to help.
Yeah.
But perhaps there's a bit of a problem with the M3, maybe. Or has
Nevertheless,
he realised he's not going to catch?
Nevertheless, 3 out of 4 wins last season, and at the end of 2019, Swift and Baker won 3 on the trot in this car, didn't they? So that'll be, what, 7 wins out of the last 8 Takiwa Club Enduro races for this combination.
And it's the only time they've driven that car is in those 8 races. So it's only that Alton Park loss that this car has had. But this race has certainly been rather close to comfort for them.
Clock's counted down.
Yeah, that pit stop was the crucial moment in the race for them.
Yeah, clock's counted down to 0, so we're going to get the checkered flag. This time, Rob Baker turns out of Goddard's the hairpin and comes through to take the checkered flag and win round 1 of the 2021 Takiwa Club Enduro Championship. And the margin of victory in the end, just under 4 seconds, 3.835 seconds over Ash Hicklin in second place. And sort of pushing Joe Locke and Ash Hicklin for sort of drive of the race, certainly Adam Howarth and Chris Boardman, because Chris Boardman caught the lap record of 1:39.758. He should be coming through shortly to take third place. But there's our Class B winner as well. So that is number 49, Will Stacey, across the line now. He takes 5th position overall, and he wins Class B. That's a great solo drive from Will Stacey, getting the better of Chris Freeman.
And that was closer than the Class A race, because that was 3.1 seconds compared to 3.8 seconds overall. So both Class A and B are really close winning margin.
Fantastic race, all in all.
Jonathan Hayes BMW ended up 1.6 seconds behind Chris Webster's Mazda, so that was close for second within Class B. Class C, we're still waiting for the Class C winner to complete its race.
Yeah, that should be through any moment now to do so. But a great race, that. Fantastic endurance race. A bit of attrition. A couple of early safety cars, but nothing for the last 90 minutes. And a good finish, because we thought for the last 20 minutes or so that there was a possibility that Ash Hicklin could chase down Rob Baker. As it turns out, he fell just short. But nevertheless, very spectacular race. 4 cars we had on the lead lap. Howarth and Boardman and Beaton and Haler also finishing with the full 63 laps to their name. And William Stacey winning Class B with 62 laps to his name. And has the Class C winner now come through? Yes, he has. And so just to confirm, that is Jeremy Crook and Alec Livesley. They did 59 laps in their Honda Civic. And there he is on screen now, in fact. So a great beginning to the Takiwa Club Enduro season, Josh.
Absolutely. Just looking at Will Stacey, That's the first time a Lotus has won in Class B since 2017, I reckon. So that was a really good drive by Will Stacey to win by 3 seconds. But yeah, really good race overall. Once we got those, that first half an hour, that was a bit messy out of the way. And then we had a really good chase at the end in great endurance racing fashion. 3.835 seconds after 2 hours of racing at club level. I think that's pretty good. And Class B was a very similar story as well. And I think it sets us up really nicely for the rest of the season, which next I think goes to Croft, which should be interesting. Very different type of circuit. Some quick and slow bits like Donington has. And I think we've got a number of different cars that can win any race over the course of the 2021 season, which is going to be excellent.
Yep, certainly looks like it. Here are the results then. The win going to Rob Baker and Carl Swift. 3.8 seconds clear in the end of Joe Locke and Ash Icklin. Third, the very rapid Adam Howarth and Chris Boardman. So Seat, BMW and BMW first 3 positions. Then another Seat in fourth, the 87 car of Beeson and Hayler. In fifth place, number 49, the Class B winner William Stacey, ahead of Chris Freeman, who was very close behind him in the Honda in fourth place. 6th overall, number 4 in 6th place. 7th place to the 1-2-6 car, Caswell and Kayla, then Beach and Grice, 3rd in Class B, were 8th. Andy Bailey going solo. Didn't actually see much of him during that race. He was 9th, and Steve Cheetham rounds out the top 10 in his Class A Porsche. And a bit further back, it was the Wallace brothers, Matthew and Simon, then David Griffin, who started the car, he was 12th. Luke Handley, John Atherton, Phil Driver, 3 more Class B cars in 13th, 14th and 15th position. Then Gasby and Jones, Stoker, McDonald, despite their various dramas. Manoj Patel in the car who drove to the circuit, he was 18th. Maudsley and Mead in the Golf, 19th. And Burge and Robinson rounding out the top 20. And further back still, we see the Class C winners, Jeremy Crook even, and Alec Livesley in their Honda Civic Type R, 21st, 22nd, and 2nd in Class C. Sid Marsh and Webster, then Hayes and Sabiani were 23rd. Christie was 24th. Alex Miller in his MX-5 with John Langridge 25th. Then Ivor Mayers, who stayed out almost as long as he could, he was 26th. Head of May and Skeets in the Nissan. Pickford and Chandler in the MX-5. The McEwens, who had various issues with the Porsche Cayman. And Bosch and Parkin in the Seat Leon. And we're getting into the cars here that did have more technical issues as we go outside the top 30. Taylor and Ashmore, we saw them pull up. Colin Gillespie, he was in and out of the pits. The Lundys in their Toyota Celica had issues. So too did Montague and Hall. And Montague's spin caused a safety car early in the race, the Porsche Boxster. That was pushed into the garage about half an hour from the end. Alan Henderson, he was a strong performer in the early part of the race, but ultimately I think probably the misfire claimed him. Chris Coomer in the Clio, Darren Ball in the Cayman. The Mercer BMW we saw stopped, as too did at the Andy Roby 318. And last few cars, Jonathan Packer, he was someone who was tipped for success in Class C this weekend, but it wasn't to be for him. Rogers and Griffiths, Jones and Rogers, Dog and Heisman, and then Hampson and Schultz also hit trouble. Let's go down to the pit lane, and Matt Suckling's there.
Thanks very much, Ian. Yep, down here with our race winner from that Club Enduro race, which of course is Rob Baker and Carl Swift. Rob, many congratulations. First win of the season in Club Enduro. It keeps the winning record going as well for you. How was that race? A long stint towards the end?
Yeah, long stint. Extremely difficult. We knew we weren't going to have the greatest pace around here. We knew we'd be, there or thereabouts, but with the 2 hairpins, Donington's a really rear-wheel drive biased track. And then I had contact about 10 minutes into my stint, which has put the steering wheel close to 45 degrees out, and it's 3 tenths down the straight. So, I mean, that's all the excuses out of the way. Obviously, the guys were keeping me updated on the time, picked up the pace a little bit at the end. Mid-stint, we had a 50-second gap, so we just cruised a little bit, knocked a second and a half off the pace, and then picked it up and again, and when they were 5 seconds behind, I think, at the line. So, yeah.
I think that's the thing as well, as a race leader, and you're getting the information through every lap, what's happening behind. You don't really have to push, do you? You just have to make sure that gap is maintained as best you can.
Yeah, correct. I mean, what you don't want to do is turn up with 5 minutes to go with the car that you've been going slower because you know the gap all of a sudden on your bumper, and then having to push like crazy. So you need to manage the gap and manage the time, you know, that you can lift off as such. But it's going to be a big season this, because I mean Henderson unfortunately dropped out, but that Lotus has got serious pace as it's shown last year. Joe Lock and Ash Dickinson's E46, as we saw today, is extremely fast. Arguably the fastest car out there. I think there was another E36 BMW that went over a second and a half quicker than we did on that time. So it's certainly going to be an interesting season.
And it's probably the right call you had there to make the pit stop under safety car, because otherwise you could have been the chasers, because you kind of made most time up in the pit stop. Yeah,
exactly. It was a bit risky because Carl saw the BMW was cleared. So the safety car could have came in that lap, but it didn't, so he dived in. We took the stop, and fortunately we did, because I don't think there was another safety car after that. So
a good job for you and Cole to start the season once again. It's going to be a good year, I reckon, for you in the Club Enduro Championship. Well done.
Yeah, let's hope we have a good season of racing, and thanks to all the marshals, and fingers crossed we can get a full season this year.
Yeah, we're finally underway, which is a good thing. Well done to you, Rob.
Brilliant, thank you. Cheers.
There we go then, Rob Baker and Carl Swift, winners of the first Club Enduro Championship race of the year here at Donington Park. We've got lots to look forward to from them throughout the season, but for now we've got our penultimate race of the day to look forward to, as it's back to bike sports.
Yes, the RLM Racing Bike Sports Championship is about to burst onto the track for its second race of the day. Had an excellent race earlier on that was won by Joe Stables by just under a second from Scott Mittal, and those two will be on the front row of the grid for this second race of the weekend for the motorcycle engined sports racing cars. Should be a fantastic racing prospect. Let's have a look at how the grid lines up. Pole position then, as I say, goes to the race one winner, Joe Stables in the Radical PR6, and alongside him Scott Mittal. Second row, Leon Morel and Mike Chen. Third row, Andrew Kimpton and Richard Wise, another of the Mittal drivers. On row 4 it's Alistair Smart and Ross Drew. Matt Moore and Julian Griffiths line up on row 5. Mark Grayson and Mark Boot on row 6. Then it's Andrew Lowe and Adrian Watt on row 7, Doug Carter, Richard Hardy row 8, Andrew Gord and Robert Rees on the 9th row of the grid. Matthew Millett back out for another race. He's lining up on row 10 alongside Robert Gilman, Gary Mitchell and Anthony Thompson in their Global GT lights, and then Ian Mitchell, Stephen Bell towards the back of the grid. Should see Stephen Bell come through from the back once again. So yes, Josh, race one it was that was won by Joe Stables by just under a second from Scott Mittal. How do you see this one going?
Yeah, he got through early, didn't he? And then we didn't really see a battle between them, although they weren't that far apart, and Scott Mittal was slightly quicker. So let's hope we get a good battle between them. And as we heard from Joe Stables earlier, it's that lap traffic element in the second half of the race, which dealing with that is important. But it's certainly going to be between those two, isn't it? And then going off the earlier race, I suspect Liam Morel will jump into third, although Mike Chen's alongside him this time, so I think we should get a good battle between those Class B cars. And then come into the second half of the race, the more powerful Class A machines should fight their way through once their tyres are up to temperature.
Yep, looks like a good racing prospect. It's going to be over a 20-minute duration. It'll be a rolling start as well once the cars are ready to go. And then we've got one more race to come after this as well, which should be well worth sticking with the live stream for. That's the Demon Tweaks Yokohama Low Cost Championship. That's going to round out the day. So two excellent races to wrap things up. A bit of news from earlier on. Before the Club Enduro race, we saw Mike Epps win the MX5 Cup race, 5 Club Racing MX5 Club race on the road. Unfortunately, he's been excluded from the results. Disqualified because of a technical infringement, so that promotes Mike Comber to the win in the 5 Club Racing MX5 Cup race. Ben Short second and Ben Hansey third. There's the 750 Motor Club safety car out on track, waiting for some cars to line up behind it for what should be a cracking 20 minutes of action under blue skies. It's actually been a glorious day here at Donington Park, despite the very cold temperatures. Well, I was going to say cold wind. I can't actually see the trees moving too much at the moment as I look out of my commentary box window.
I'm not convinced,
but it's still pretty
Ian,
cold out there.
Yeah, I'm not convinced we're the best people to suggest what the weather's like out there, are
No.
we, in the commentary booth?
We can see what it looks like, and it looks gorgeous, but it might feel a bit different.
I suspect you'll get a message from Matt if it's not so nice out there.
Yeah, probably will. Marshall's doing a great job today, of course. They have to stand out in the cold. They've got the fleeces on, they've got the waterproofs on, hats on, masks on, well wrapped up against the elements. And many, many thanks to all of the marshals who do such a fantastic job here at Donington and circuits all around the country to make this motorsport